Morning, everyone, and welcome to today's zoning hearing. This morning, we have the invocation, which will be brought by Reverend Kristen Hayden of East Cobb United Methodist Church, followed by the pledge provided by Officer Jerriman with Cobb Police. Please feel free to come up front, and if you're willing and able, please stand for the invocation and pledge.
Let us pray. O Holy Lord, our God, we give you thanks for the opportunity to gather together this morning, both in person and online, as the people of Cobb County. Oh God, I pray that this meeting today will be filled with a heart for our county. Lord, that all the presentations that are made and discussions had will be done with hearts at peace. And although all may not be of one mind, we pray that we may be of one heart, a heart for this community that we love, that we care for, and that we seek to be the best for all its residents, a community that we strive to be a representation of your beloved community. All this we pray together in the name of Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. This meeting is now called to order. I'm going to turn things over to John Peterson, our zoning manager, to help walk through today's agenda.
And thank you, Chairwoman Cupid and Commissioners. Good morning. Today's hearing will be conducted both virtually and in person. I'd like to take a moment to explain how the meeting format is going to work with the virtual participation. As each case is presented, we will recognize those on site and virtually, either in support or opposed to the specific case. For virtual attendees, to support or oppose a case, you want to indicate in your Q&A box that you're opposed or support, or if you wish to speak. For example, if you wish to support rezoning case Z1, you would want to type in SUP to support and then the case number, Z1. Additionally, if you want to support a case and also speak on it, you would want to type into your Q&A box the case number, SUP, and then the word speak. If you would like to oppose a case, the process is very similar. In your Q&A box, you would want to type in OPP, the case number, to oppose a case. So for instance, if you're opposed to rezoning case Z1, you would want to type in OPP Z1 in your Q&A box. If you would like to oppose a case and also speak on the case, you would want to type into your Q&A box OPP, the case number, and the word speak. For the speakers, you'll be called by name. Your line will be unmuted by Cobb County, and you will just say your name, where you live, and you will affirm that you've been sworn in. Today's hearing will be conducted with the following process and procedure. Each case will be called in numerical order. When the case is called, we would ask the applicant stand and raise their hand to show that they are in attendance. Then we're going to call to see if there's anyone opposed to that case. We would ask the opposition to also stand up and raise their hand so they can be counted for the record. Then after the counting of the opposition, the applicant and any opposition will be asked to come forward to be sworn in so they can present their testimony to the Board of Commissioners. It's important to note that each side only gets 10 minutes to state their case or concerns. There's not a rebuttal process, and there's not a process to reserve your time, so you need to convey all your information to the Board of Commissioners within your 10-minute time frame. Additionally, if there's more than one person who wishes to speak on a case, you may want to coordinate with each other about what you're going to talk about, because each side only gets 10 minutes, and you don't want to cover the same information twice. After the presentation period, the board will start to discuss the matter at hand. From the discussion, you may ask one or more speakers to come back to the front for additional comments or questions. And after that, the board will make a decision to either approve, deny, hold, or continue the matter at hand. There is one case on today's printed agenda which has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard. That's rezoning case Z17 of 2021, 2196 Cobb Parkway LLC. This case has been withdrawn without prejudice and will not be heard today. Madam Chair and Commissioners, there are a number of cases on today's printed agenda which have been continued by either the Planning Commission or staff, and these cases I'm about to read will not be heard today. First case is rezoning case Z52 of 2020, Carl Edward Dills. This case was continued by the Planning Commission until the May 4th, 2021 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z52 of 2020 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z61 of 2020, Greenline Partners LLC. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the May 4th, 2021 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z61 of 2020 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z72 of 2020, North Point Ministries Incorporated. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the May 4th, 2021 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z72 of 2020 will not be heard today. ROD1 of 2020, Atlantic Realty Acquisitions LLC. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the May 4th, 2021 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So ROD1 of 2020 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z8 of 2021, Beazer Homes LLC. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the May 4th, 2021 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z8 of 2021 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z13 of 2021, Curley Family Homes LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the May 4th, 2021 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z13 of 2021 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z16 of 2021, Century Communities Incorporated. This case was continued by the staff until the May 4th, 2021 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z16 of 2021 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z18 of 2021, Twiggs Farmers Market LLC. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the May 4th, 2021 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z18 of 2021 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z19 of 2021, TRATON LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the May 4th, 2021 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z19 of 2021 will not be heard today. Rezoning case Z20 of 2021, Cobb County Board of Commissioners. This case was held by the Planning Commission until the May 4th, 2021 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So Z20 of 2021 will not be heard today.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a comment regarding Z20, please.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner.
I would like to at this time invoke a provision under Cobb County Code regarding the held case Z20 of 2021, which was recently held by the Planning Commission. Code Section 134-123B authorizes any two members of the board to invoke direction to the Planning Commission to consider and vote on a held case. In this instance, Z20 of 2021 involves an application by the county to rezone surplus property so that it may be sold. As we all know, the identification and potential sale of surplus public property by the county is a specific process by which properties are identified, vetted through county staff, discussed with real estate agents, and ultimately this board when deciding whether to surplus and market for sale, and if so, what zoning classification would best be requested in the zoning process. This board on February 9th of 2021 unanimously authorized via agenda item number 23 for the BOC chair to proceed with rezoning this parcel from R30 to LRC. The rezoning application was signed by the chair to enable this process to proceed through the rezoning process and commence as approved by the Board of Commissioners. At the Planning Commission hearing on April 6, 2021, Z20 of 2021 was considered for rezoning along with another county-initiated rezoning application for surplus property. The chairman of the Planning Commission questioned the decision of this board to rezone this parcel at LRC despite the fact that this zoning application request stemmed from months, if not years, of study to ultimately sell this parcel for sale depending on need, supply, and demand. But the free market ultimately decides the respective value of parcels. But this board, nor the Planning Commission, should speculate about what property value should and should not be. The Board of Commissioners considers the sale of surplus property and requested rezoning classifications seriously. We rely upon staff and professional advisement in reaching these important decisions. This simply was not a unilateral decision, but a comprehensive direction given by this board pursuant to our county code. Therefore, commissioners representing districts 1, 2, 3, and 4 collectively request the county clerk to note the invocation of Cobb County Code Section 134-123B to direct the Planning Commission to consider and vote on a recommendation for Z20 of 2021 so that this board may consider at the May zoning public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for clarification, how long did the Planning Commission hold this case?
They held it their first time this month.
Okay, so has there been any discussion that's ensued from that?
Pardon me?
Has there been any discussion that's ensued? Have
No.
they reached out to staff for further direction on that matter?
No, ma'am.
Okay. I don't mind us considering invoking this policy, but I think for us to do it when it's just being held for 1 month or for one time without there being any conversation is this is a pretty strong move to invoke the Planning Commission to act. I know that we made a decision as a board. I have not heard from the chair of the Planning Commission with respect to this item. So I'm wondering, why are we taking such a step without conversation ensuing first to have to invoke this provision?
Mr. Peterson, would you like me to answer that question, or would you like to?
I'm referring to John.
Chairman Cupid, I think one reason why the board's considering this provision is because the reason why the Planning Commission held it was for a reason that I don't believe they have the authority to consider. The Planning Commission does not have the authority to consider what a property sells for. So we just don't want them to hold it again for another reason that's beyond the scope of their authority.
Did they vote on the matter?
No, they held it.
They just held it, so they didn't have to vote to hold it.
Well, they voted to hold the case.
Yeah.
Chairwoman.
Okay, I mean, I can understand why we would move it. This board did choose to move that property forward. You know, if there are instances where a case is being held for multiple months and it's unreasonable without us having an ability to come together, then I can see us invoking this. But for us to make this kind of move almost puts us in an adversarial position without finding time to really have a communication first. The first that I've seen of this was in an email yesterday. And so I feel personally, I don't want us to be creating unnecessary adversarial type relationships with our appointees when in their best frame of reference, they thought that they can make this type of decision. At least I think they are owed, with all the service that they do, a benefit of a conversation with someone about this matter. You know, if this has been, again, held for multiple months, I can perceive why we would move forward in this fashion. Yeah. Yes, Commissioner.
I think the difference here is this is county property that had already been vetted through staff and the district commissioner. And there, I guess, was some confusion at the Planning Commission and the reason that they held it, but I have talked to my planning commissioner and explained the situation, and I've had conversations with Mr. Peterson too after it was held, so I support encouraging them to move forward. We actually had an agenda item on this, I believe, to rezone it to LRO for surplus property. So
Yeah.
I support Commissioner Gamble's statement.
I agree. I support having them move forward on this as well. I have never seen us have to exact such a move to have them move forward on a matter. And again, I don't understand if they held it for one meeting, why we cannot have a conversation without having to move under this type of provision for them to act on a matter. Again, this is me being the chair and just receiving an email. I've had no communication from the commissioner with respect to this. I've had no communication with anyone from the planning commission or staff. This is the first time it's coming to my attention, and I've never seen us have to move in such a exacting step to work with our appointees on a matter. So, yes.
I was going to say, I think this particular move will be less adversarial and more informative because of the situation, and even watching how that transpired, how the decision came to be, and some of the commentary that was presented. I think it's more informative than adversarial as far as the positioning is concerned. That's kind of what at least came up in that meeting.
I would like for it to be informative too, which is why I don't understand, again, why we don't have a simple conversation. I cannot understand, again, why we would move forward under this policy when something has been held for one meeting.
But I have a question for John and maybe for Commissioner Gambrell. If you can just explain to us the reason for them holding or recommending that they hold the case.
The Planning Commission was concerned about the zoning district that was being requested by the Board of Commissioners. They felt that the LRC would not generate enough revenue from the sale of the property, and that's primarily why they held it. They wanted the Board of Commissioners to explain to them why they're not going for a zoning district that allows for a higher sale of the property. And as I stated earlier, what a property sells for is not within their purview or this board's purview when it comes to zoning decisions. So, that was an improper reason, in my view, to hold the case. And, going back to your first point, Chairwoman Cupid, we have had cases we've held for multiple months. But those are cases, there's something that's being worked out either with our engineering division or with neighbors or citizens. And there's, good reason to hold those, to work out those conditions to help mitigate the zoning case. For this one, in my opinion, there was not a good reason to hold it. That was within their scope of power.
Have you had that communication with the Planning Commission?
Not since the zoning hearing 2 weeks ago.
Okay. It was shared at the Planning Commission that you told them that they should not hold it for that purpose?
No, I did not communicate
And that's
that
what
to
I'm
them.
saying. I don't understand why we just don't have a conversation as an organization. Why would we make such a ruling on a matter over a case like this? I can assure you that for all the work that they do, and if they thought they acted within reason, that they would appreciate the courtesy of having a communication about why it wasn't proper than for us to exact this under the statute, to compel them to do something which they could completely understand and be moved to do if they were just to have a communication.
I understand, and I believe Commissioner Gambrell's her motion for the clerk's note kind of explains why we're doing what we're doing today.
I'm hearing that, and I'm not against us moving forward this parcel for the board's consideration. What I have an issue with is trying to compel an action of the Planning Commission, which in their best interest, they continue to hear our cases and work on our behalf every month. I think it comes across exacting and not in the form of cordiality that we have of a relationship between our board and our board appointees for us to move forward in this manner when they only held it for one meeting, and it could very well come back and be heard for the next meeting. If they have a conversation, why can we not have a conversation before we move forward in this manner?
John, as a follow-up, did the Planning Commission receive a potential sales price for the property?
No, they did not.
Okay, thanks.
That's not what we're here for in zoning,
And it may,
and we can't consider price points or sale of property or any of that.
And again, that could be shared. I will allow the motion to move forward if it's going to be moved and seconded. I will share with the board that that's not the kind of relationship I want to have with the Planning Commission. I feel like if there is an issue that we find in the work that they do, we can always sit down and communicate with them as a board. But I've never seen this policy moved forward when we have held cases for month after month after month, some of them which I questioned today that we've held for 5 and 6 months. They held it for one meeting because they thought that they had the capacity to do so. And if it wasn't clear to them that they did not have that they should not be voting on a measure for that purpose, I think they are at the very least deserving of a conversation before we move to compel them to act. That's my position. I don't want to belabor the point. We have a number of people here in the audience who are waiting. We have a number of cases to listen to, but I will share as a chair, that is not how I want to be able to work with our Planning Commission. So I don't know if you have additional comment.
My understanding is at the work session that was held with the Planning Commission the week before the meeting, this rezoning application was discussed, and the Planning Commission at that time was instructed that this was a decision of the board and was being put forth by the board. So it was very clear at the work session that the board had initiated this and put this forward for consideration. At the hearing on April 6th, and I would invite you to go back and watch that whole section of the hearing. It starts at 8 hours and 51 minutes to be exact. You will hear John Peterson repeatedly instruct the Planning Commission when they were questioning the rezoning that this was the direction of the board. Mr. Peterson was very clear back to the Planning Commission that the board had made this decision and put forth the application. The chairman of the Planning Commission did not like the LRC rezoning. He wants something more. This board has already decided LRC was appropriate for this location and this use. So therefore, we are sending a message back to the Planning Commission that the board has decided what this will be. Please vote on the application and send it forward. We will not be modifying it as the board, the Planning Commission requested us to do.
I don't disagree with you, Commissioner, and I think it's very clear in the application this is the Commissioner's direction. But I also think if we didn't need the Planning Commission's support or vote on weighing on a matter, then it would not go to the Planning Commission to begin with. They have the reason or the ability to use their discretion on voting on a matter. And again, if that wasn't clear to them then, it certainly can be clear through a very direct communication. Do we have to do it in this manner? I just don't feel like I've ever had that kind of relationship with any of appointees or citizens, have to compel them to act when they've been given the responsibility of vetting our cases month after month, of which they labor to do month after month. So I don't disagree with you, Commissioner. I agree with you. It's been made clear this is a BOC application. It's clear without even hearing it, it's a BOC application and it's our direction. But I still disagree with having to compel a board to move in a very short amount of time without a communication having ensued with the Board of Commissioners. Yeah. Go ahead. Go ahead.
No.
I just want to ask, have there been any subsequent conversations with the Planning Commission to explain this?
I have spoken to my Planning Commission individually, not the board.
I'm hearing.
And my Planning Commissioner, I did speak with him. I did speak with him prior to this because, again, this was a case in, our district. So he knew how we had gotten to this place.
Again, if it's the chair of the board, the Planning Commission that made that, I have not heard from the Planning Commission. Again, the first communication I received from this is reading an email late afternoon when I was in the middle of a meeting. So it's not clear to me why we have to make such a drastic step. I understand a motion is not needed. There's just I don't know why a motion isn't needed to compel, I would question why a motion wouldn't be needed to compel a planning commission to act.
It's just pursuant to our rules. All it takes is just two to move an item along. So
Okay.
there's four commissioners now that are in favor of it, and really there's no vote or anything further to do.
So
on
how do you gather that there are four in agreement? Is it just a communication that occurs that compels you to move under that?
Commissioner Gambrell, what she just read into the record, she had four that were in support of it.
Okay, and I just want, for me, again, as chair, I would like to have on the record that there are four who are in agreement in it, and I would like to have on the record that I am not in support of moving this, but for the other commissioners who are in support of compelling this action, I just want to be clear at this meeting, not from a prior communication. I mean, if it was taken by consensus, I see one nodding. So are you in support? Okay. So yes, there are four in agreement. I'm not in agreement with compelling the action under that ordinance, excuse me. Yes.
And I would like to just say, for the record, staff and I discussed this starting on April 6th after it happened, and then April 7th. And then after we discussed it, staff was trying to reach out to the chair's office to meet with her in regards to this and had not received a response.
I will let staff determine that. I meet with staff regularly and see staff regularly, and I assure you that if they were to have reached out to me to meet on this matter, that would have occurred. What I don't understand for the commissioner is if this is that important, why we can't communicate when we've been attempting to do that. So please do not use that forum for such a communication because that is not true. And my staff is not up here to defend it, so I encourage you please to not put them under the bus when you as commissioner could very much pick up the phone and reach out to me. And this is it. We're going to move on to this matter and go on to the next case.
Okay, next case is LUP 11 of 2021, Gregory D. Brown. This case was continued by the Planning Commission until the May 4th, 2021 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So LUP 11 of 2021 will not be heard today. SLUP 2 of 2021, Diamond Towers. This case was continued by the staff until the May 4th, 2021 Planning Commission zoning hearing. So SLUP 2 of 2021 will not be heard today. Other business number 21 of 2021, OHC WIGLEY LLC. This case was continued by the staff until the May 4th, 2021 Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. So other business item number 21 of 2021 will not be heard today. Madam Chair and Board, there are a couple of cases on today's agenda which do need to be continued. The first case is rezoning case Z11 of 2021, Venture Communities LLC. The applicant did send me a letter in last week. Madam Chair and Commissioners want to continue this case. There are two issues they want to continue to work on with this case, so I would ask the board to continue rezoning case Z11 until your May zoning hearing.
Yes, Commissioner Burrow.
That's,
Oh, excuse me, Commissioner Richardson.
Motion to, I couldn't really understand the last few words you were saying, John.
So moved.
So, okay, so moved. Thank you.
I'll second, I have a comment. Do you know if they're going to add sprinklers since they don't have the two access points?
Commissioner Burrow, I'm not sure of that, but we can add that to the list of things to look at during this 30-day hold period.
So that will be plan review?
No, we'll have them look at that within the next 30 days, so you have an answer in 30 days.
Well, they have to do an alternative if they don't have the two accesses.
That's
right?
correct.
Okay, so I would recommend sprinklers if they don't,
Wait a
since they don't have the two.
And we don't have to determine that at this point. We're just continuing this case. So they have time to deliberate those conditions.
Oh, we're continuing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I thought
That's what I'm
you were
trying to-
moving it to consent.
No.
I thought, yeah, okay. Now I follow, because that's why I was
Well, I'm having
confused.
trouble understanding you, John.
thought I was
don't
like, wait, I
hear.
didn't realize we were hopping from consent to.
I'm sorry. I
It's
thought they were
okay.
moving it
It's-
to consent.
It is okay.
Yes, so this motion is to continue this case until your May
Okay.
BOC hearing date.
Sorry.
No problem. Now, the commissioner is very much aware to consider sprinklers. Yes.
Yeah, add sprinklers.
Okay, so there's a motion, there's a second. Is there any additional concern or communication needed regarding this continuation? All right, all those in favor of the continuance, please raise your hand. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. And there is one other case on today's agenda, which is an other business item. Other business item number 14 of 2021, Security Vault Works Incorporated. Madam Chair and Commissioners, the staff would ask you to continue this case for 30 days. I think there's some additional work that needs to be completed or addressed to make the commissioner more comfortable with this application. So staff would ask you continue other business number 14 until your May hearing date.
1 second.
That's neat.
Okay. Yes, Commissioner Sheffield.
So moved.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the continuance, please raise your hand. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, Madam Chair, I'm ready to start the consent agenda.
All righty.
And before I start reading this, Madam Chair and Commissioners, the first case on consent is Z1, Curly Family Homes LLC. There is one person signed up virtually who is opposed to this case and would like to speak. So I would like to know before I read it in if the board just wants to pull that off and hear it, or...
They have not, they're registered, but they're not signed on.
Okay,
Changes.
yeah. So there's one person who registered to oppose Z1, but they're not
Okay.
registered to speak yet.
They did not sign on to speak.
If they're opposed, what would be the step, the path forward? Would we still pull it off consent? Because consent presumes no opposition.
Well, that's one route we can go. Chairwoman Cupid is to pull it and hear it, but the fact that there's a person opposed and they're not signing to speak on it, it kind of puts us in a bad position, because if we're going to pull it and there's no one
Right.
oppose it, then what?
Were they asked if they can speak? Or if they want?
Yes, they indicated that they did wish to speak, but they have to register and then also sign on today, and they have not shown up on our virtual portal yet.
When did you hear from them? Was that today or another day?
They had registered by 8:45 this morning, but it's a two-step process, so registering and then joining the meeting, we can only speculate.
Okay, so they've registered and not joined the meeting?
Correct.
Okay.
If you like, Chairwoman Cupid, we can keep it on consent, and then I can read it in the name of the person who opposed it, if you like, if that helps out things.
Yes, that's fine, and we can see if they hop on before the end of consent. If not, we'll just keep it on consent.
Okay, thank you. Cobb County Board of Commissioners, zoning hearing consent agenda for April 20th, 2021. First case on consent is rezoning case Z1 of 2021, Curly Family Homes LLC. Request rezoning from GC to FST for townhomes in land lot 516 of the 18th District. The property is located on the southeast side of Blair Bridge Road, northeast side of Riverside Parkway, east of the intersection of Blair Bridge Road and Riverside Parkway. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z1 to the FST zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number one, site plan with the last revision date of March 2nd, 2021, with the following changes. A, mailbox kiosk to be relocated near Unit 10, subject to Department of Transportation approval of the location. B, modifications, if any, deemed necessary by DOT for distance of driveways and parallel parking from intersections. Number two, letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Kevin Moore dated March 30th, 2021, not otherwise in conflict with item number 25 of the stipulation letter, subject to approval of DOT and any alternate regulations. Three, front elevation of each building to have at least 50% brick or stacked stone. District Commissioner to approve the elevations. Number four, all garages to be used primarily for parking of vehicles only. with incidental storage that does not interfere with the parking of vehicles. Number 5, maximum of 51 units. Number 6, with regard to the area near the inside radius of the curve on the entrance road, only low-height landscaping to be used so as to allow clear sight to the driveways on units 40 and 41 while maneuvering the curve. Number 7, all landscaping in this area shall be subject to DOT approval. Number 8, staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. And the one person that did register virtually to oppose the case was Ms. Vanessa Whitehead from 7102 Blair's View Court. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z1? No. Let the record show there's no one opposed. Rezoning case Z6, Lloyd Development Services, request rezoning from NRC, LRO, and RA5 to RM8 for townhomes in land lots 297 and 388 of the 18th District. The property is located on the east side of South Gordon Road, the southwest side of Mapleton Parkway, south of the intersection of South Gordon Road and Mapleton Parkway, west of Dodgen Road. The Planning Commission recommends deletion of Z6 to the FST zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, a letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Garvis L. Sams Jr., dated March 31st, 2021, not otherwise in conflict. Number 2, site plan received with the above referenced stipulation letter with changes necessary for the Department of Transportation comments. Number 3, revised site plan to be submitted by Wednesday, April 14th, 2021 for the Board of Commissioners zoning hearing. Number 4, applicant to work with the Cobb County School District to determine locations for the school bus stops, school bus waiting areas, each with a concrete pad to provide a safe waiting area. Number 5, all garages to remain available for parking of vehicles with only incidental storage that does not interfere with the parking of vehicles. Garages may not be converted to finished living areas or other uses. Number 6, maximum of 93 units. Number 7, all driveways and guest parking to be approved by DOT. Number 8, if any of the parking or driveways are substandard and the applicant can't find another way to accommodate it, then units shall be reduced to either meet guest parking requirements or to remove units that don't have approved driveways. Number 9, staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. And number 10, the site plan last revised April 9th, 2021, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to rezoning case Z6? No. Let the record show there's no one here opposed in person or virtually to rezoning case Z6 of 2021. Rezoning case Z12 of 2021, TRATON LLC requests a rezoning from NRC to RM8 for a townhome community in land lots 627 and 628 of the 19th District. The property is located on the west side of Austell Road, south of Waymar Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z12 to the RM8 zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, letter of agreeable conditions from Mr. Kevin Moore dated March 30th, 2021, noting that item number 23 of the stipulation letter shall be subject to the Department of Transportation approval and alternate regulations. Number 2, applicant to make revisions to the April 1st, 2021 site plan and submit the revised plan by Wednesday, April 14th, 2021 for the Board of Commissioners zoning hearing, and that plan has been submitted. And Madam Chair and Commissioners, it's the site plan dated April 12th, 2021. Number 3, District Commissioner to approve the final site plan. Number 4, maximum of 35 units. Number 5, all driveways to connect directly to public streets and meet DOT approval. Number 6, units to be deleted if driveways cannot meet DOT approval. Number 7, all guest parking spaces to meet with DOT approval. If adequate guest parking spaces cannot be provided per standards, units will be deleted to come into compliance. Number 8, no hard angled curves or corners. Number 9, all streets and curves must meet DOT standards. Number 10, buffer to be 20 feet wide along Austell Road frontage. And number 11, staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z12? No. Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to rezoning case Z12. Rezoning case Z14 of 2021, Pearl River Brothers LLC, Request rezoning from GC to NRC for a restaurant and land lot 733 of the 16th District. The property is located on the west side of Canton Road, at the convergence of Canton Road and the Canton Road Connector, south of Kurtz Road, and on the north side of Sylvan Park Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval of Z14 to the NRC zoning district, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, variances as shown in the zoning comments. Number 2, adherence to the Canton Road design guidelines. And number 3, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here opposed in person to rezoning case Z14? No. Let the record show there's no one here opposed either virtually or in person to rezoning case Z14 of 2021.
Yes, Commissioner Burrow.
John, on the site plan for this, there's no indication of a drive-through or speakers, outdoor speakers,
That's correct.
correct?
That's
So
correct.
if they wanted to expand or add that, they would have to come back under other business?
What you ought to do, Commissioner Burrow, is add a condition that is subject to the site plan contained in the rezoning analysis with minor modifications to be approved by the district commissioner.
So they would or they would not? I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
What you can do is make a subject to the site plan contained in the zoning analysis with minor modifications to be approved by the district commissioner. So if they wanted to make a major change by adding a drive-through lane, you could require it to go back through other business.
Okay.
Would you like to add that?
There's not outdoor speakers on the. If they want to add anything, they have to come back.
Correct.
Would you like to just add no outdoor speakers, and then if they change it, they come back?
Well, I would, except for in a pandemic, a restaurant has been using drive-through, and I don't want to, I'd rather them come back and ask than deny it
Okay.
outright because of the pandemic. I mean,
Okay.
if we go back to, drive-through only or takeout only, that would hurt them.
I could see the site plan. The site plan, what does that have to do with the speakers for a site plan?
Well, it's an existing closed restaurant now, and they're not adding on. They're
Yes.
just remodeling inside for
I
the
understand
existing
that.
structure. But there's no indication of a drive-through. But one of the Carol Brown with Canton Road Neighbors had asked that we put no outdoor speakers. But they'd have to, if they have to come back for other business to allow that, I'd rather that stay like that.
Okay, as long as you perceive that stipulation is going to limit the speakers. I know site plan tends to go with physical elements of a zoning. The speakers being put on a building, I don't perceive how that's being impacted by the site plan.
Well, typically when you have a drive-through, there are outdoor speakers that take your order and to talk back to you. To kind of clarify this and make it easier, maybe we should just put a condition on it that there'd be no outdoor speakers.
That's what I perceive, because that would force them to have to come back
Correct.
to other business.
Okay. Well, then add that.
Okay, so we're going to add no outdoor speakers and subject to the site plan contained in the zoning analysis.
Right.
Correct, okay.
Yes.
All right, got it.
Okay,
Thank
thank you.
Okay, moving on, LPSP 1 of 2021, the Cobb County Board of Commissioners request a limited professional services permit for professional office in land lots 139 and 158 of the 19th District. The property is located on the south side of Corner Road and the west side of Lost Mountain Road at the southwest intersection of Corner Road and Lost Mountain Road. The Planning Commission recommends approval of LPSP 1, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, professional office use only. Number 2, site plan submitted with the district commissioner approving the final site plan. Number 3, district commissioner approved the final professional office use. Number 4, fire department comments and recommendations. And number 5, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here in person opposed to LPSP 1?
Okay.
Madam Chair and Board, let the record show there's no one opposed, either virtually or in person to this case. And moving into land use permits on the consent agenda, LUP 10, Patricia DeVerger requests a temporary land use permit for renewal of a child care learning center in land lot 631 of the 19th District. The property is located on the west side of Crest Ridge Circle, south of Crest Ridge Drive. The Planning Commission recommends approval of LUP 10 for 24 months, subject to the following conditions. Maximum of 10 children. Number 2, 1 employee. And number 3, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here in person opposed to LUP 10? No. Madam Chair and Board, let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to LUP 10.
Let's ensure, I see a woman here raising her hand. You do have one in opposition. Is she the applicant or?
She's the applicant.
Okay, that's the applicant.
Madam Chair and Board, the applicant does have one question, so would the board entertain hearing one question? Or would you want to pull
We'll
it in
entertain
here?
the one question. If
Okay.
it gets in a conversation, we'll pull it off consent. Yes, ma'am, you can come up and hear it.
I'm Patricia DeVirgil, owner of the Tiny Tot University. And I had a small sign about this size for childcare. I had it for like 1 year, a whole year. And the code enforcement came by and said I couldn't have it. And the reason I had it, because I was at the county office on Powder Springs to do some updates. And the young lady told me, you used to couldn't have it, but now that you can. So that's the reason I had it. And code enforcement said that sometimes they get confused. So he was going to check into it, but he did check into it and said I couldn't. So the next time I'm here to ask, could I keep it?
Madam Chair, it sounds like she just wants to have one small 24-inch by 24-inch sign, just to kind of direct people to where she is, and the staff would be okay with adding that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, because I'm
Commissioner?
still there because of COVID and, you know.
No, that's fine if we can add that into
Yeah,
into the motion.
so what we're going to add, applicant is allowed to have one 24-inch by 24-inch sign.
Right.
Okay,
No
thank you.
greater than,
No greater than 24 by 24 inches.
right.
Okay,
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you. And let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to that case. Next case is LEP 13. Alexander Labes requests a temporary land use permit for online candle shop in land lot 105 of the 17th district. The property is located on the west side of Pineland Road, north of Pineland Circle. The Planning Commission recommends approval of LUP 13 for 12 months, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, no on-site customers. Number 2, no additional employees. And number 3, Department of Transportation comments and recommendations. Is there anyone here in person opposed to LUP 13? Madam Chair and Board, let the record show there's no one here either in person or virtually opposed to LUP 13. And moving into other business cases on consent. First one is other business case number 12 of 2021, which is to consider a stipulation amendment for AT&T by Crown Castle USA Incorporated regarding application SLUP 1 of 1999. The property is located on the east side of Sandy Plains Road, north of Kinridge Road, in land lots 703 and 738 of the 16th district. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, shrouds permitted to be deleted off the tower. And number 2, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 12? Let the record show there's no one here either in person or virtually opposed to other business item number 12. Other business item number 13 is to consider a reduction in required lot size for livestock from 2 acres to 0.88 acres for Jonathan Tucker for property located on the easterly side of Fox Hollow Parkway, south of Fox Hollow Trace, in land lot 1051 of the 16th district. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following condition. Number 1, letter from Jennifer Tucker and family dated March 10th, 2021, with all attachments, photos, and site plan. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business item number 13? Madam Chair and Board,
Just a
let
point
the
of
record-
clarification for those in the audience, the livestock referred to here is for ducks. So it's not anything egregious. You won't see a number of cows roaming around .88 acres. It's for ducks around a pond.
That's correct. It's 6 very special ducks.
Yeah.
Let the record show there's no one here opposed virtually or in person to this item. And last item on consent is of the business item number 15 of 2021, which is to consider a site plan amendment for CPH Inc. regarding rezoning application Z104 of 1986 for property located at the southeasterly intersection of Austell Road and Mulkey Road in land lot 921 of the 19th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Proposed site plan contained in the other business packet with the District Commissioner approving minor modifications. Number 2, Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet. And number 3, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business item number 15? Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to other business item number 15. And that completes your printed consent agenda, Madam Chairwoman and Board.
Okay. I have 19 listed here on the consent agenda. Do you have that, John?
Okay. Oh. Pardon me, I missed a page.
Okay. All right.
So that does not end the consent agenda. Thank you. Okay, other business item number 18 of 2021 is to consider a site plan and stipulation amendment for Environmental Logistics LLC regarding rezoning application Z16 of 2019 for property located on the west side of Shaw Road at Woodrush Drive in land lots 489 and 520 of the 16th District. The property staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, proposed site plan received March 16th, 2021, contained in the other business packet, with the District Commissioner approving minor modifications. Number 2, water quality map dated March 31st, 2021. Number 3, stormwater management comments contained in the other business packet. Number 4, Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet. Number 5, fire department comments contained in the other business packet. And number 6, all previous stipulations not in conflict with this amendment to remain in effect. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business item number 18? Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to this item. Next item is other business item number 19 of 2021, which is to consider a site plan amendment and stipulation amendment for TRATON LLC regarding rezoning application Z71 of 2019. The property is located on the southwesterly intersection of Sandy Plains Road and Ebenezer Road in land lots 524 and 525 of the 16th District. Staff recommends approval, subject to the following conditions. Number 1, proposed site plan received March 16th, 2021, contained in the other business packet, with the District Commissioner approving minor modifications. Number 2, Exhibit B, contained in the other business packet. Number 3, Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet. Number 4, fire department comments contained in the other business packet. Number 5, site plan review comments contained in the other business packet. And number 6, all previous stipulations not in conflict to remain in effect. The applicant is here. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business item number 19? Madam Chair and Board, let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to other business item number 19.
Okay, and I understand there are additional cases. I know Commissioner Burrow let me know before the meeting, and Commissioner Gambrell also has one.
Okay.
Go ahead, Commissioner Burrow.
First, for the record, for other business 19, I want to make sure that the email.
Commissioner, is your mic on?
Sorry. For the record, on other business 19, I want to make sure that the email from Mr. Klein of Sandy Plains Baptist Church to Mr. Kevin Moore, dated March 25th, is submitted for the record. And I have a copy of that for the clerk if she needs it.
Got it.
Okay.
And then, you want me to continue?
Go ahead.
For Z15, I would like to add that to consent, unless there's any opposition. Can you Can you read that, and then I'll
Oh,
make a
yeah,
motion?
I'll go ahead and read it to the record. Rezoning case Z15 of 2021, Soon Han requests a rezoning from LRO to NRC for a health studio in land lot 109 of the 16th district. The property is located on the north side of Woodstock Road, east of York Place. The applicant is here. Is there anyone here in person opposed to rezoning case Z15? Let the record show there's no one here either in person or virtually opposed to rezoning case Z15.
Okay, so I would like to make a motion to approve Z15 to NRC for this use and user only, subject to the site plan in the zoning analysis packet and all staff comments and recommendations. Any other use will come back to the BOC as other business, and I'd like to move it to consent.
Thank you. Yes, let's modify that motion based off of her last request to move it to consent and not to approve. Because we're adding this to consent now.
Okay.
And then we'll vote on it in one full motion.
Okay, so do I have a second to move it to consent?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Commissioner Gambrill, I understand you have a case.
Yes, I would like to move OB 16 to consent.
And Commissioner Gambrill, while I was reading the consent, we had one person come in who's opposed to that case. So you probably should hear that one.
Okay, we'll hear it then.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do any other commissioners have any matter that they want moved to consent? Has there been any communication with the person in opposition to Z1?
No, we did just add a call-in user. Let me check.
Okay.
It does not match her number, so I have not been notified. I've been checking emails as well, and no communication.
Okay,
with
very
Ms.
good.
Whitehead.
All right, so we'll keep Z1 on consent. Okay, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda as revised?
Second.
Any further discussion? John, did you have anything? You're good. All right, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Okay, all those folks that were on consent agenda and that were approved, you're free to leave. Your business is complete. And moving into regular cases. Where the heck is it? Okay, first regular case is LUP 12 of 2021, and Dominguez requests a temporary land use permit for the purpose of granite fabrication in land lots 6 and 7 of the 18th district. The property is located on the south side of Stout Parkway and on the north side of Rolling Meadow Drive, east of Cobb Drive. Is the applicant present? The applicant is present. Is there anyone here opposed to LUP 12? Let the record show there's no one here in person or virtually opposed to LUP 12. Would the applicant please come forward to be sworn in?
Good morning. My name is
Good
Ann
morning.
Dominguez. Good morning, Madam Chairman. Okay, so we're just asking for this temporary land use for the purpose of granite fabrication. And it's a one-man business that we want to start because it's my husband. So not only are we asking for permission to him be allowed to fabricate on our property, but he would also be installing the granite once it's fabricated. So it's not, we do consider that it's a residential, it's on our property. Like I said, he's beginning the business, so as he gets business, then he's gonna fabricate it. So it's not gonna be like a 9 to 5 type of work schedule. There's no weekends. There's also not going to be no customers on site. It's really residential granite only that we're going to be doing. So it's going to be pretty much working with builders as we get our name out there. We also do, the tools that he's going to use is a bridge saw with water, so it's not going to make too much noise. We do, our neighbor next door, he has given consent. We do have amenities from the subdivision on the other end of it. So we really don't consider there should be any concern as far as the noise, especially if we're not going to be doing a 9 to 5. The fabrication would be on demand, maybe 2 to 3 max a week, no weekends. He uses the bridge saw water to fabricate the granite and a polishing tool. With the uniform would be eye protection and mask. So the noise is going to be very limited at like maybe when no louder than a blower or a weeder when somebody's doing their landscaping. We don't have, if you guys will consider that, we don't have anybody opposing. It is temporary. Once we get our business out there and our name known, then it's something that we do consider that eventually we're going to have to move out. And it's just really into a bigger location when it does request the volume of the business. And like I said, it is our home, so we do have our family as well. It's not something that he's going to be doing out there 9 to 5, Monday through Friday. So you guys will also take that into consideration. We are willing to meet whatever stipulations you guys do bring on hand for approval. That's, if you guys have any questions, then that's it on my end.
Thank you, appreciate it. We will hear from possible opposition and the commissioner, and if we have more questions, we'll call you back up.
Okay.
Yep, thank you. So
Thank
don't
you.
go too far.
Okay,
Yep.
stand by.
I don't think there was
John?
opposition.
She's done with her presentation.
There's
Okay,
no
there's-
opposition.
Okay. Let's just see, they're just checking their systems.
Okay.
Okay,
Because she
so-
did mention that there was another number, so I thought maybe it was, may she come back to the podium? Thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes.
I had an opportunity, to look at your worksheet, and I
Yes.
just have a couple of follow-up questions for
Okay.
you.
Sure.
You have on here that you will have a forklift
We-
at the property?
Correct. We currently don't have it. I think eventually we're going to need it once we get our business out there. We presently don't have it at the time, but it is something that we would look into getting into the future.
Okay, and when you make the purchase, where will it be stored on the property?
It's going to be on demand. So I know one of the commissioners in the last meeting 2 weeks ago, he did have that concern of like holding like an inventory of slabs, but we don't have the volume for that. So that's not, the granite is only going to be on demand. So as soon as he gets an order for fabrication, then he's going to fabricate it and go install it. We're not going to keep like an inventory to where it's going to just look messy or anything like that. It's going to be on demand.
But more specifically for the forklift, will that be stored on the property?
Most likely, yes,
Okay.
inside the workshop.
Okay, and is the workshop in this photo?
I know it was on the survey
Because
one.
there is an accessory structure, a shed here.
Yes, that's
Is
it.
that where the
Yes.
forklift will be stored?
Yes,
Okay.
it will, ma'am.
Also, box truck, can you just explain to us a little bit of what's described or what is a box truck?
Well, that's what, I guess it's considered, it's a Ford and they consider it a minivan when we registered it. But it's a smaller type of, it's not even like a semi-truck or anything. It's more of it's a box truck. It's smaller. I don't know.
Is it a commercial vehicle?
It is.
Okay. And how many deliveries do you anticipate per day or per week?
Per week, I'm thinking maybe 3 max. Like I said, we're wanting to get started, so we want to get our name known out there first. So I'm thinking maybe maximum 3 a week, if that.
Okay. Madam Chair, does anybody else have any questions? I'm prepared to make a motion. Do you have any questions or feedback from anyone?
I do have feedback, but I'll wait to hear from the other commissioners.
And is all of the operation going to be contained inside?
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Okay. I just have a problem with commercial activity
Yeah.
in VLDR.
Commissioner Gamble?
I have a couple questions because I'm not sure which way you're going to go, but on their application, they had their hours from 6 a.m. to 8 p.m., which conflicts with our noise ordinance. So if we would specify hours of operations, and then also it didn't say if it was Monday through Friday, even though I heard her say that it was not going to be weekends, but that way we would specify days as long with that. And then also, for clarification on the box trucks, are you going to be renting from like a U-Haul, like a 16-foot box truck, or are you going to be purchasing one to keep on the property?
Purchasing one, yes. a
Okay.
truck.
So it's essentially a U-Haul
Yes,
type box truck?
truck.
Okay.
Yes.
And that will be used for transportation of the granite?
It would be I don't know if it's called a commercial truck, with the tailgate, and it has the frames and all that to carry the granite. So it's framed and it's on a truck with the bed liner, one of the longer ones. I'm not sure what they're called, but it would actually be on a truck. The actual box truck that we have on site right now, it's not something that he would use to install the granite.
Okay, thank you.
And I just want to I didn't, on the application, I don't recall filling out that it would be 6 a.m. to, I don't know what hours. I know you said 6 a.m. to, I don't recall ever filling that out because
It's on here. It says, excuse me, it says 6 to 8, but it doesn't clarify if it's AM or PM, but we're assuming it's 6 a.m. to 8 p.m.
No, I wouldn't consider, we have our family and there's no way we could do those kind of hours.
But you do have 6 to 8 on the worksheet.
Okay, I don't recall. That doesn't make sense to me. But no, definitely, that's not something that would work with our family schedule as well.
I want to commend you for coming in, asking for the permit as opposed to operating. This application is not a result of code enforcement action. And I do want to commend your husband for starting a business. It's certainly a booming time, at least for housing.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of opportunity in this field. I am concerned about this activity taking place in a residential area. I'm not necessarily opposed to it occurring in VLDR because if the property was large enough, it might not have as much of an impact. But if you look at where the shed is, it is close to other property owners, and they did not sign off on the sheet. It's not close. It's not closer to the adjacent property owner. Also, I looked at fabrication businesses online just to get a sense of what it looks like, and there is noise that's associated with it. And if you said it's like a blower noise or outdoor equipment,
No ladder, yeah.
this activity is going to take place in a metal building. So a metal building, you're going to hear more vibrations, and it can magnify that noise level as opposed to it being outside and the noise just dissipating in the air. So I'm concerned about the heightened amount of noise, where if it was a blower, somebody can look out and say, oh, it's a blower. They know that's, the sound is going to be over once that person's done moving leaves. But here, if somebody is just going to hear this noise being generated inside, it's going to be hard to attribute, and it could be magnified. In fact, we had another zoning issue a year or two ago about music that was taking place in a facility that was metal, and there was no buffer to the sound, and the sound was being amplified for the neighbors that were around it. And so I'm thinking that the intensity of the activity itself, the noise level associated with it, is a concern. Having to have a possible bobcat because it's very heavy pieces of material, and you're located in a community that has like tennis courts adjacent, a tennis court adjacent to it. I just don't think this is the type of activity people would anticipate seeing in a residential area with a bobcat, hearing these type of grating noises. I just think it's not appropriate for this area, even though I think it's a commendable activity. And, I don't know if you're amenable to accommodating it, if you wanted to consider how to make sound, how to dampen it, or how to hide the equipment. But I personally don't think it's appropriate to see that equipment or to hear that noise level inside of a metal building in a residential area.
No, I agree, and actually, those are some of the comments that I had to share with the applicant, and I can appreciate you guys starting a family business. However, I do have several concerns regarding the application, and one of the concerns is that the nature of the business classifies it as being more light commercial, and as you know, this is a residential area. And my another concern is that it is in close proximity to an amenity, to a neighboring HOA. So while we may have the noise to contend with, I'm also concerned about the dust that the fabrication will also emit into the air, which I believe to be very unsafe. And although you're just looking or seeking a two-year application, my concern is what can happen in that two-year time frame. So, again, I commend you all for wanting to start a business. I just do not feel that this is the most appropriate place to have that type of business. And with that, Madam Chair, I make a motion to deny land use permit application number 12.
Is there any further discussion? All right.
Okay.
All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand.
Thank
Yes,
you.
the motion,
for your
yes, the
time.
motion passes 5-0. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Madam Chair.
Yes, sir.
Madam Chair, Commissioners, the person who was opposed to your first consent item, Z1 for TRATON, they have signed in, but they don't have a microphone, so.
I see they've joined the meeting now, but there is no indication that they are able to speak. I have sent her an email to try to coordinate if she's having difficulties or determine what the difficulties are. But at this point, we wanted to let you know she's there. She's not able to participate fully.
Yes, Commissioner.
When did she initially register? Because I've had conversation with her
Okay.
application in the past.
I can probably get that time off of the original report, so.
In the meantime, Madam Chair, do you want to move on with other business and come back to that?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Okay. Moving into the other business cases, first one on today's agenda is other business item number 8 of 2021, which is to consider a site plan approval for private streets and private road frontages in an R20 zone subdivision for David Peace Incorporated for property located in land lots 162 and 163 of the 16th District. The property is located on the west side of Kahili Drive at Kahili Road. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business item number 8? Okay. Madam Chair and Board, there are 2 people here in person opposed to this item, and there are 3 people here signed up virtually who are opposed to this item, but they don't wish to speak. So at this time, I would ask the folks here in person to please come forward to be sworn in.
How many virtually?
There's 3 virtually and 2 in person.
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. Kevin Moore here on behalf of the applicant, David Pearson Communities, in this application for other business for almost 30 acres, 28 acres. It's located on Kahili Drive. This particular request for other business is somewhat unusual. We are simply requesting approval by the board for private streets for this subdivision. The property is zoned R20 and will remain zoned R20. To confirm, this is not a rezoning request, but a request to approve private streets for property. And the subdivision of this property and the development of this property. When this property was coming through the plan review process during a land disturbance permit submittal as proposed for private streets, it was discovered that your county code requires the Board of Commissioners actually to approve private streets for a subdivision. That is in section 110-86 of your county code. That's not the zoning ordinance portion of your county code, however. It's a different section and chapter of the county code. Your zoning ordinance requires there to be residential lots to have public road frontage unless you have approval of private streets. And so that's where this came to you for approval of private streets. But otherwise, as noted by county staff, all other requirements of the R20 zoning district and ordinance are being met and are satisfied. It's just private streets versus public streets. Also, as a bit of information, this particular applicant in other residential subdivisions built here in Cobb County, certainly over the last 15 years, he has utilized private streets in those subdivisions as well to success. He does that for site design and flexibility, as well as for what he can obtain and gain in terms of streetscape and appearance from his standpoint for those developments. In this particular development, our proposed development on Kahili Drive, and it will be developed, the primary concern that's been voiced is one of stormwater. There has been stormwater concerns and stormwater issues that have occurred in this basin for the adjoining subdivisions, which, by the way, are zoned R15. And those subdivisions and some of the amenity areas have had stormwater issues in the past, and I'm sure you will hear about those. There is, however, some floodplain on this property, and the stormwater issues have been studied in great detail. But again, those issues and concerns are present whether private streets are approved or whether this is simply developed with public streets. So the question is, are you better off from a stormwater standpoint, since that is the actual concern, with what is being proposed versus how it would be developed without that? And I want to go to a couple of things here. Number one, this is from David Braden, your division manager for Cobb County Stormwater Management Division. Based on this proposed plan, I've highlighted a couple of things I think are extremely important in stormwater comments that have been made as part of this plan. Like I said, it's been fully engineered and fully reviewed by your Stormwater Management Division. First is that Mr. Braden believes this plan now addresses all of the concerns regarding the development, and I want to highlight a couple of very important pieces. Number one, as it relates to impervious coverage, he has stated, and it's confirmed, and it's in fact listed and shown on our plan, that the proposed development is well under the allowable 35% impervious coverage. Under R20, you have a maximum, as you know, impervious coverage of 35%. What we are proposing is well under that 35% maximum for the overall development. It's at 15.9%, and all lots are below the 35% coverage limit as well, and that's important. With the private streets, we're able to utilize less asphalt. We're able to utilize shorter driveways, less pavement, less impervious coverage, and that is one of the benefits, especially when you're looking at stormwater concerns. But also importantly, Mr. Braden notes that the proposed site plan redirects all site discharge to the Rubes Creek floodplain and away from the existing adjacent residential parcel to the north, and you will hear from that residential owner's representative here today, and you can see we've specifically redirected it away from his property. In addition, the proposed pond design reduces the site discharge by 27 to 43.8% for the most frequent design storm events, the 1 through 10-year storms. And I want to repeat that. What we have designed as part of this plan reduces the site and development stormwater discharge by 27 to 43.8% for the most frequent storms, and it has further reductions as you go to the 20, 25, 50, and 100-year storms. And again, those reductions are on our site plan and are part of this proposal and included. All of this, however, is lost without private streets as proposed. What we are proposing accomplishes this and exceeds those stormwater minimum requirements, and we've put that on the plan and made it a part of our submittal. However, if it's simply developed as a public street and with public roads, the detention is still in the same place, the property is still developed, but the impervious will be far closer to the maximum allowable as opposed to what we have proposed, meaning far less. That's what's lost without the private streets. Now, some of the comments that you will hear from the adjacent owner representative and others, I want to address those. First, along the shared property line, which is to the top of your screen, along the shared property line, we've identified a ditch along this boundary, and the question had come up from this adjacent owner as to whether it's actually a state water or stream. We had two separate studies that were conducted by environmental engineers in 2018 and 2019, and which had been submitted. Those separate studies both identified this as a ditch, an ephemeral stream, not a state water that requires buffers. And they both reached that same conclusion. In addition, we have provided additional information and additional review of this particular area, and that's been provided to the Stormwater Management Division to determine whether it's a state stream or whether it's ephemeral and just a ditch, as we have described it. Just a little bit about that. There is much that goes into whether you're considered or whether a stream or a ditch. It's very specific. It's very engineered from an environmental engineering, and there's checklists and a number of items that have to occur or be present in order for it to be designated as a state stream or simply a ditch. Our review of that and the information that we have determined is it does not qualify as a state stream. It is in fact a ditch, and that's from the environmental engineer that has been provided to Cobb County Stormwater Management Division. There's more than simply having water in it that counts for a stream or not. And I just want to make that clear, especially when the source of that water is a detention facility and a detention pond that's on the upstream school property of Kahili Elementary. That's where the source of the water is that collects it on that school property and sends it through this ditch. So it's not a spring. It is in fact sourced from an existing detention pond that's actually not very well maintained. It's on school property and it's rather old. But regardless, that is where it's coming from, and simply one of a host of reasons why it's not considered a state stream but a ditch. In short, just to summarize for you, this is simply a request to approve the private streets for this development. It's not to rezone this property at all. This property would remain R20 and will stay R20, and other than the private streets, meets all R20 requirements. The only requirement is simply the public street versus private streets. Again, all of the stormwater issues you may hear about from opposition are present regardless of whether this is developed, and it will be developed as either public streets or private streets. They are all present. The question is whether denying the requests leaves this property meeting the minimum standards required for stormwater, or whether by approving this request, as we've demonstrated, we're able to exceed those minimum stormwater requirements. With that, I'm here to answer any questions that you may have and respectfully request your approval of this other business item for approval of private streets. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, opposition can approach. And remember, if there are multiple people speaking in opposition, you have a collective 10 minutes, so you just may want to be mindful of others who may wish to speak.
Good afternoon, Madam Chairman. Brian Dodrell here with Giacomo Roberts and Dodrell, 945 East Paces Ferry Road, Atlanta, here on behalf of Colin and Kayla Brees. They are the immediately adjacent residential property owner to which Kevin referred. They are directly adjacent to and on the northern side of what we contend is a creek. Now, Kevin pointed out a couple of conditions to you for whether or not something is a creek or a ditch. And one of the things he talked about was whether or not there's flow of water. That's true. It is a flow of water, but it's measured at a particular time, and that is whether there is still a flow of water more than 48 hours after the last rainfall event. Those facts obtained, we've produced video and put it into the record, evidencing flow 5 days after the last rainfall event through this. The next issue is whether or not there is rested vegetation. And we submitted pictures of all manner of rested vegetation along the banks. There are trees immediately adjacent to the banks of this creek, and there are roots strung down the creek from flow. There's scouring going on from the flow. These are trees in many cases that are in excess of 50 years old, so this is not something that has been graded in. And when you look at it, visually look at it, and we've put in pictures of it, this is not a ditch that runs in a line through a piece of property. This is a meandering creek that wanders through trees and then turns and goes all the way down and connects with Rubes Creek. One of the primary concerns, and I've put up a plan for you, everywhere that you see pink on this plat that I've put up is an encroachment into the undisturbed buffers for the creeks that they acknowledge are on the property. And where you see green, those are encroachments into the impervious surface buffers on the creeks that they acknowledge. If you look up at the top, there's a black hashed area that runs along the creek that is at the northern end of this property. And that creek, they have not treated with any kind of buffers. So they've put House 9 is completely subsumed in those buffers. The detention pond is completely consumed by the buffers from that creek. We have put in, they talked about the engineers they presented. We put in 2 engineers' reports, Jake Bendix as well as Chuck Wilson, both of them opining on the issues here. The county has already had to purchase homes further upstream or further downstream toward Jamerson and Kemp from Country Meadows, where those houses were flooded out. Mr. Wilson testified that in 1985, Country Meadows was not in the floodplain, and as of today, the pool and the tennis court both are in the floodplain. My client's property runs almost all the way to Jamerson behind Country Meadows. So when those properties get flooded, we're under several feet of water. Now you're talking about putting in more development, and I appreciate what Kevin said, but the other thing that you get from private roads, yes, you get design ability, but you also get more density because you're pushing stuff in, so you're getting more rooftops. And when engineers talk about that there's no net increase, and they talk about, well, we've reduced it to 27 or 45, whatever the numbers are, what they don't talk about is there are 2 times to measure. One is peak flow during a storm event. When you detain water on a site, yes, you can reduce the peak flow at the stormwater event. But what you trade for that is that you increase the duration of water flowing off the property. That's the only way you can do it. You're generating now more water because of impervious surface. So we already have an area between here and Jamerson that's acting as a giant detention pond for the benefit of neighborhoods all around. And you're going to increase the duration of the flow into that. And that means you're going to maintain floodwaters on these properties even longer. And that's going to result in people coming back to the county and saying, now my houses are receiving enough water that you have to buy my houses. You've already got a problem here. You've got a congestion at Jamerson and Kemp where there's not a sufficient culvert to get water under the road, and there's not a study about how this is going to further impact that. The final piece that we've raised as an objection in studying this, we've also determined that the boundary line that they're using between our property to the north and their property is in error. And it's in error because what we have determined is that they are using a property line that doesn't reflect the fence that has been on the property for more than 40 years. And that fence has been open, notorious, hostile, to exclusion of all others, to my client's property. When we went out there looking at it and he started talking about, well, here's the fence line that I own to, I'm looking at the survey and I went, there's a conflict here. So until these issues are resolved, we think it's imprudent to go forward and approve this. We've asked for it to be deferred. If we can't get it deferred until all these issues can be worked through, then we think the matter should be denied until these issues are decided. My understanding is, based on Open Records Act requests that we've submitted to the county, that the determination by the county of whether that creek is a creek or a ditch hasn't yet been made. We've not been notified if it is. We've submitted 2 Open Records Act requests in the past 2 weeks and have gotten no information suggesting that determination's been made. The issue of the boundary line, again, that's something, under Georgia law, adverse possession, title is vested. It's good title in Mr. Brees, not in the owner of the property. We'll go to court and get that quieted, but title has already vested. So you now have property in front of you for whom you have not gotten an owner's authorization to consider. And so for all of those reasons as set out in our letters, we would respectfully ask that y'all deny this matter.
Thank you. We have 3 additional minutes, 3 minutes and 30 seconds. For those who are virtual, did they intend to speak to this matter?
I did have one person indicate she would like to attempt to. She thinks she's also having technical difficulties, but we would have someone to queue up.
Okay, thank you. Yes, sir.
Hi, Madam Chairwoman, Commissioners. My name is Colin Brees. I own the adjacent property that I was just referred to. I own 23 acres next door to this property, so ultimately downstream north of the property. And I'm a capitalist. I've, like I said, lived in the county for 25 years. I've started a business here, employed many people in the county. I've been a good resident. Really love the home I own next door. Certainly bought the home next door, understanding there's up to 30 acres next door that's undeveloped and one day it'll be developed. I'm a capitalist. I'm certainly happy for the owners to that property to develop it. What I'm concerned about is, in the past, the additional zoning's been denied, and I understand today we're not talking about additional density from zoning. We're talking about what I see it as, and the engineers I've talked to is, there's another way to try to get more density in this property by approving private streets. And I'm concerned that these private streets and additional rooftops, it talks about how they've diverted the water with a stormwater pond away from my property, maybe away from the location next door to where it would flow into the creek, but it's still going to go downstream of a several acre field that's in a floodplain that I mow with a zero-turn mower and a tractor, and I don't want that to become flood water every day. Today it's grass and I can mow it, and I'm really concerned where this is going to dump out. We've not been provided information. Mr. Kevin Moore mentioned that the environmental engineers that provide this, to stormwater management, that this determination that is a ditch. We've seen none of that information, although we followed up every single week all the way back to this February when this has been moved. So I'm just concerned we're not getting information for our engineers to react to understand, digest. The county looks at its commission that we haven't seen it. So we just don't have the information, and I, as well as the Country Meadows community, are concerned. You've probably seen the pictures of their pool that is very close to flooding. If we have additional water, again, maybe not immediately, but the duration of time that their pool will be flooded and that whole community can't use their pool. There's lots of concerns about increased density here. I'm a capitalist. Again, I'll close with saying happy for this property to be developed, and just don't understand why one of the most environmentally sensitive properties in the area would need additional density via private streets. So, thank you.
Thank you. That leaves us about 90 seconds for whoever's virtually, if they can speak.
Our first virtual speaker is Susie Burrows. Susie, you are unmuted.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Really quickly, as a community, we are on the other side. We are in Enchanted Woods neighborhood, and as well as the neighbor on the other side who just spoke and his attorney, our homeowners association president and the representatives who've been working with the county, they also have not received anything back from Kevin. They had requested it, and they're still waiting to hear the hydrology reports. They were requested. He said he was going to try to get them, and they have had no response from him on those. One of our other concerns is the fact that the entire community plan layout has changed since their original proposal. Now they're trying to put a number of homes, driveways right on Kahili Road, which is completely different than what was originally pre-approved in 2017. So we're just confused as to how all of these changes have come up. And I don't really understand how making a road private versus public changes anything as far as the soil hydration. Like I said, we have a number of items that we were concerned with, and it seems like there's a lot of deflecting. So the environmental impact as far as the water, yes, they may be deferring it from the north, but then that won't do anything to the south side.
I'm sorry, excuse me. I just want to confer with our county attorney. The 10 minutes have run for opposition, and I know we have somebody else here to speak. Sometimes we've added more time and then given the proponent the ability to speak. Additionally, I would suggest we
have no more virtual.
You have no more virtual speakers? Okay. I'm willing to give you about 30 seconds just because there was time transitioning from the speaker here at the dais to when you were queued up. Are you able to wrap up your comments within 30 seconds, ma'am?
I believe so.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay. So at any rate, like I said, the stormwater drainage is a concern. We have been waiting for that information, and nothing has been returned to our homeowners association. But again, the plans have changed. We didn't receive any of that information until just before the meeting, the first meeting. And I don't believe that they have actually considered all factors regarding how the stormwater is going to take place, as well as the change in the road.
Thank you, appreciate it. Okay, that's going to end our time for opposition. I believe this is in your district, Commissioner Burrell. I'm sorry, Commissioner, I can't. No, we just gave her time to accommodate the transition. Yep.
I'd first like to call on Dave Braden. I think he's virtual today. Mr. Drogdill mentioned 2 open records requests, and I got that late last night, his email, that he hasn't received a response. He did receive a response to one. The other one, we have not received the answer or information from the state to Frank Gibson, our erosion control manager. So until we receive that, or he receives that, we don't have that information for you. I guess that could have been or should have been communicated to you while we didn't have that. Dave, are you on the line? Dave Braden?
Yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I can't see you.
That's not my fault.
I know. Can you kind of discuss the history here of the flooding and drainage issues that we've had in the past, and
Sure. I mean, obviously, this property is located on the floodplain for Rubes Creek, as well as a tributary to Rubes. There is, as with most floodplain area in the county, there are properties downstream that are in the floodplain, including the rec area for Country Meadows. actually, the county took over some of that property floodplain a while back, but and so and of course, any development, as was mentioned by the opposition, any development the county is going to increase runoff volume as well as duration of flow. Otherwise, you're not going to. There would be no development in any part of the Metro Atlanta. The question is whether they're meeting the county's development standards and our code requirements that is required for any development. And after some go-rounds with their engineer, the current plan does meet that requirement. And as Kevin had said, this property could be developed straight R20 with public right-of-way, and possibly, I'm not sure. I haven't seen a full layout that would or alternative layout that would say how many lots they could do that with. But the point is that what people don't realize is that the R20 zoning allows a maximum of 35% impervious, which has already been mentioned, and that's all they can put on the property. So that's what's being provided here. The lots include the streets and the sidewalk and the driveway and house, and they're still meeting the 35% requirement. When you go to a public road separate from the lots, the public right-of-way, depending if you have sidewalks on both sides, is between 54 and 60% impervious. So if this were to go to public streets with individual lots, all of the right-of-way would have between 54 and 60% impervious. And the lots, no matter how many lots they are, if there was only 15 lots, big lots, well over the R20, they could put 35 big houses up to 35% impervious on those lots. So you would have well over 35% of the overall development in the flood, over 35%, because the right-of-way is well over that on its own. So the fact that with the individual lots and the private streets, they're still under the 35%, runoff-wise, it's better off than if we had straight streets. And Kevin had said that, shorter driveways, and there's other reasons for that. But density, that's a zoning question and a question for the Board of Commissioners. But as far as number of lots, but as far as runoff, which is what I'm concerned about, the current plan is well under the 35% that's allowed for the straight R20 zoning. So that's how my comments have been crafted, as Kevin has already kind of summarized. Did you want me to talk about the stream buffer as well?
Yes, please.
The only two, and I think Kevin had mentioned that my dates are a little bit different from his, but there were only two environmental studies that were done. One was by Steve Modica at GAEA back in 2016, and he identified the two floodplain streams as buffered streams, but the ephemeral stream along the north property line was not buffered. It only flows after obviously it has rested vegetation, it carries stormwater runoff, but it only flows after rainfall events, and it does flow for extended period after rainfall events because the detention pond for the school, as was already mentioned, holds a good bit of water. It takes a long time for that water to bleed out. And then Contour Environmental did a study in August of last year. They only identified the two perennial streams on Rubes and the tributary. They did not even look at that other channel because it was physically off the property. That's the one that I think the applicant has requested additional information from them, which they have been speaking with. I spoke with Frank Gibson this morning. They have been speaking with Frank. They're providing, and they already talked about the supporting information, but Frank wanted them to submit it physically to him, and then Frank told me this morning that based on that information, he will be making a determination that the channel is not a live stream and does not require a stream buffer. And so that determination letter will be made by Frank, but it has not been done as of today. That's why they don't have, they've been requesting a report, but there is no physical report or letter yet that I know of, yeah.
Okay, does anybody else have any questions for Mr. Braden?
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate your explanations, but perhaps it just isn't quite clear to me. On our screen here in front of us, we have a map that shows streams throughout the property. So do those not need to be considered in the surrounding buffer when that site is developed?
Yes, the Rubes Creek, which is the larger one that borders the western side of the property, is a tributary that runs diagonally from the southeast corner, kind of diagonally through to the, I guess it'd be the north, kind of almost the northwest corner. Both of those streams are floodplain that have had to be addressed, as well as stream buffer. So they have, at least the latest plan that I saw, they were meeting the per Frank Gibson, they were in our code allowance, they were meeting the buffer averaging for those streams. They were encroaching a bit in areas, but they were offsetting that with buffer averaging in other areas. So they were meeting the county requirements for the buffer on those two streams already.
Can you explain to me what you mean by buffer averaging? Because to me, is a buffer not a buffer? Is a buffer not to remain consistent along a stream or a floodplain?
There is allowance in the county code for what they call buffer averaging for site conditions, where let's say a buffer is supposed to be 50 feet along a given area. As long as let's say they reduce it 10 feet to 40 over a 100 square foot area. As long as elsewhere adjacent to that or on the opposite side, they provide at least more than a 1-to-1 offset. Instead of a 50-foot buffer over there, they make it 60 feet. So you're providing an equivalent area of buffer on the parcel itself, maybe not in a specific lot, but on the overall parcel. That's allowed by our code.
Very interesting. And then you mentioned floodplain. Can you talk to me about floodplain as it pertains to this parcel?
The floodplain that they're shown is our FEMA floodplain for both of those streams. It's identified on our Cobb County flood maps, and is regulated by our development standards and our county code. So they can't fill in that floodplain, and they can't reduce the volume of floodplain storage that's associated with that floodplain.
I presume you can't develop in the floodplain either.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, all right. Yes, Commissioner, go ahead.
Dave, I have a follow-up question for you in regards to buffer averaging. And I understand buffer averaging, but should the buffer averaging then allow, as we're seeing in this case with the site plan, for essentially homes to be constructed within the buffer area?
They cannot be, I'm pretty sure there's nothing that's shown in the undisturbed buffer. It's probably the impervious setback that is like a corner of a house because of the way the lot is. I don't have the plan in front of me, but the county does allow for buffer averaging for the impervious setback as well as it does the undisturbed buffer.
Okay, thank you. 'Cause I guess we would have to look at that site
But they
plan.
still have to increase. They still have to provide an area that's an increased impervious setback on the stream or on the parcel to offset that whatever that encroachment is for that lot. Yeah.
Commissioner Brown.
Again, I don't process those buffer variances. That's done through community development through Frank Gibson in erosion control, who administers the stream buffer ordinance. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, David.
One more question, Dave Braden, if you can answer this.
Sure.
The total site acreage is, I believe, 25. Where I had it somewhere. Let's see. 25.8 acres. And I believe the floodplain is 8.9 acres.
I think mine, somewhere in there, I think at least the last plan I had showed 8.5, but yeah, somewhere around 8.
8.5, okay.
Floodplain and wetlands is, I think, is 8.5, something like that, yeah.
Okay, and so a straight R20, you'd have to subtract out the 8.5 acres?
You're talking about density, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But the floodplain, the lots can be within the floodplain can be on the lots themselves or separate. You can have open space that's not on the lots, but I think what you're talking about is how density is calculated, and that's not something stormwater's purview.
Okay, well, I've done my own figuring, but I just want to clarify the acreage.
I believe that's right.
Okay. Okay, I'm ready to discuss.
We're discussing.
Just for some history, this case came to us in 2017, Z74, and the applicant was requesting R12. As you can see by this map, it's surrounded by R15 and R20, all around. It was denied by the BOC, and a lawsuit was filed. And the recommendation was a straight R20 with no variances. This area has a history of flooding and a lot of drainage issues. The plan before us to request the private streets, I know that the attorney and even Mr. Braden have stated that a straight R20 plan would be more impervious surface. I don't understand how, but the plan before us to request private streets, to me, is to get more lots. And the calculations, right now they're proposing 39 lots. With a straight R20, removing the floodplain, I think they would get around 29 or 30 lots, max. We've continued this case to give the two attorneys time to work things out with the creek, and we still don't have the answer to that, but I've also received other emails, numerous emails in opposition to this, and I can't support it because of the density and the issues with drainage and flooding. And again, I would recommend an R20 plan with no variances. They won't have to come before us, but they will have to meet all county standards. So with that, I make a motion to deny.
Any discussion? All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. The motion to deny passes 5-0.
Madam Chair and Board, we did hear back from the person who was opposed to Z1, and their initial email back to me states
Sorry,
they
John.
weren't. Okay.
I'm trying to hear you, yes. Thank you.
We did hear back from that person who was opposed to Z1 originally, and their email that I forwarded to Commissioner Sheffield wasn't really in opposition. It was more that they wanted to make sure that things would be done during plan review regarding DOT comments, stormwater comments, and things like that. So there are site inspectors that follow through with those things when it's being developed. So, those things would be covered when it's being developed.
Okay, so we can still keep that on consent and have those concerns addressed.
Has she logged back in yet?
She has logged back on. It's up.
Okay, just, Irrespective of the substance of the matter, is she in opposition to Z1? Because sometimes we do have people come in opposition to make sure that their concerns are addressed in the motion, so.
I believe that is her position. She's
Okay.
not in strong opposition, but she's indicated that her concerns, she would like her.
Okay. Is she able to be heard?
It seems as if she is. She registered at 5:03 this morning. There's been a lot of communication, and she seems to be heard, so.
Okay, my concern is that there may have been technical issues when we were speaking before, but I think we already made a motion to keep that on consent. And so I don't know what the interest of the board is. I think she was here in opposition, you know.
Right, I mean, but she's not opposing the application. She just want to make sure that, that the county's following through with the site visits, et cetera. But we included in the motion that there was a person in opposition. Since she's not technically in opposition, should we revise that? Because we have that we approved the application and we noted Ms. Whitehead as being in opposition.
Well, currently, the application is approved on consent agenda, so, you know, that business is already passed. You know,
Okay.
at this point, you know, it'd just be a clerk's note to note that, you know, what her concerns were, and they're going to be addressed when the site's being developed.
Okay, that's fine.
I just think the only reason she didn't speak and that case wasn't pulled is because of the technical issues. If she was here, she would have spoken during opposition. So I feel uncomfortable just, again, irrespective of what the substance is, I feel uncomfortable about how it moved forward, knowing that she was logged in at 8:45.
She registered.
She
at
registered,
but she did not log on.
Registered, logged in. I don't know the process, but her intent was to be able to speak in opposition, to have that considered, and she wasn't given that opportunity. And so I would like to hear from other commissioners. I don't feel comfortable about.
I mean, I think she logged on at 8:45, but notwithstanding her technical difficulties, she still did not log on to speak. She was registered, but she did not log on to speak until how much longer?
Yeah, she indicated, right as you asked me, she was working on logging on to speak on behalf of the case.
Because it may not have been clear.
I don't think it was technical difficulties as much as a timing issue on her behalf, a choice she made.
Okay.
Then, yeah. Yes, Commissioner Burrow.
I just want to ask, have you received an email with her concerns outlined? And could that be submitted with the case for the record?
Yes.
Since it's got to be determined. Okay, can we add it now if it's already been approved on consent?
I think if she's gone through the hassle to be present, she wants her voice to be heard. There are many people who email to oppose, but if they take the time to log in, she's not logging in just to hear, she's logging in to be a part of the hearing.
She's still online?
She is still.
Okay, we can allow her to speak then,
Okay,
Just-
would you
yeah.
like
Already
her to be
voted on the
unmuted at this
case.
point?
We would have to go through a process to ensure that, we already voted on this matter, and so we would have to, I need to confer with legal to figure out what we do moving forward.
And we haven't heard the case. The applicant
Exactly.
hasn't presented.
Exactly.
Right.
So,
Yeah, and
exactly,
it's on
that's why I'm.
consent, so-
Exactly.
I know.
Excuse me, there's too much conversation going on right now, and I'm trying to confer with legal to figure out what the path forward would need to be since we voted on this in consent. Mm-hmm.
Need some microphone.
Chairwoman.
There you go.
There you go. Chairman Cupid, you have identified what the issues are. This has already passed and been approved by the board. So, and the applicant has been dismissed and released from the hearing. So if you're going to take some sort of action now that would, you'd have to reverse the decision that the board has already made, then to schedule it for a hearing.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Okay, thank you. That's my thought, since there's already been a formal motion that we did vote on. Go ahead, John, let me hear from you first.
Can I offer a possible solution, Chairwoman Cupid?
Please.
You know, the case has already been heard and has been passed. Would it be okay with the board to give Ms. Whitehead 2 minutes of your time to state her concerns? And then after those 2 minutes, you know, if there's consensus of the board that what she said would change their decision, then we could go from there. You know, she may state something that's already taken care of in the conditions or something else that may not have changed the decision of the board to approve it.
This is why I'm concerned about hearing the substance of a matter. I feel procedurally, she was present to be heard. I just, when we start looking at the substance of an issue in opposition, it makes me feel uncomfortable about the process of it. I think either we go with it being on consent or we open it back up to be heard.
And procedurally, the board has done the right thing. You know, this hearing is advertised to start at 9 o'clock in the morning, and that's when we tell everyone they have to be here, whether it's virtually or in person. So if a person's in their car and they're late and the hearing's already done, then the hearing's already done. You know, the technical difficulty she was having was not on our part, I don't believe.
Okay, I just want to see if there's consensus from the board to open this. Is there consensus from the board to keep this on consent as approved?
Well, it wouldn't be to keep it on consent. It's already been approved.
It's already been approved.
It's already been approved.
To keep
Settled.
it
The
as
case
is
is over. The
yes.
applicant's been dismissed, so.
Is there interest in hearing this matter from the board? I'd like to hear that.
I'd like to hear the district commissioner's report.
I mean, you know, I just go back to Ms. Whitehead. She did register at 8:45, but for whatever reason on her end, she had technical difficulties. We went through the entire list of cases on consent. We reserved time for her at the end, and she still was not available even after we read all of the many cases into the consent agenda. Based on her email, her concern is primarily that she just wants to make sure that there's someone to oversee the project. So her concern is not a fundamental issue with the application itself. It's more of an oversight issue, which John has addressed in an email to her. So I would like to continue or move or leave this on consent agenda. It's been approved. I've had an opportunity to speak with Ms. Whitehead back in December, and most recent as February. And she expressed her concerns then. So, you know, what she's bringing up today, it's not a fundamental issue with the application or the development itself.
And again, this is all hearsay unless we hear from her. This is why I don't like speaking for other people. I like people to speak for themselves, because I don't know what she wants to say today until she says it. I hear you, but I don't like putting words in people's mouths who can't say it for themselves, because again, there's so many times we hear from people in opposition via email, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they want their voice denied once they come before the board, because we've already heard their concern.
But I think she reached out specifically what she wanted in writing by email. So I think that whatever issue she may have had with the application would have been noted in her email.
We've already voted. Yeah, we've already voted on it. I'm willing to keep it on consent. I feel very uncomfortable about us having a process for people to participate virtually, and maybe in times in the future we just wait to make sure that's all squared away before going ahead and approving it on consent. But I think we've got to find a better way to make sure that the process is very clear to us and we accommodate the reasonability that somebody may have a challenge, understanding do they need to register, do they need to speak, and all of that. Yes, Commissioner.
Commissioner Sheffield, did Ms. Whitehead in her email copy the clerk?
Let's see. It looks like it went to Jenny.
If not, if I could just ask you to forward her email to the clerk for record with this case. case.
Okay. I will do that, thank you.
Yeah, I know the commissioner is, provided she has already heard from the speaker. Is there anyone that wants to open this case up, or do we want to keep it closed? I think we either open it or close it.
Yeah, I concur with Commissioner Sheffield that it's been approved on consent. If the decision is reversed, then you've got to give the applicant the same consideration as you
Certainly.
do someone that was opposed. So I think with the concerns that have been emailed, I think the best way to settle that is to have it recorded with the clerk.
Thank you. Commissioner Richardson?
Yeah, I concur with Commissioner Sheffield on this, even, void of us knowing the substance of the opposition. There was time allotted for the presentation. I do understand there's a lag with our recordings, but that's something that we should address if there was a technical issue, but not aware if there was one in this case.
We'll have to.
And, but that time was allotted, and we even considered moving Z1 off of consent for that exact reason. But yes, I do concur with the decision to keep it on consent.
Okay.
Keep it approved.
And Commissioner Gambrell?
I support Commissioner Sheffield's motion.
All right, thank you. So we'll go ahead and keep the matter on consent. And I'm sorry, you can let the caller know that she'll be unable to address the case. With that, we are moving on to our next other business item.
Yes, ma'am. That would be other business case number 16 of 2021, which is to consider a reduction of public road frontage for Ms. Barbara L. Hartsfield for property located on the north end of Trail Road, northwesterly of Midway Road, in land lot 311 of the 20th District. The applicant is present. Is the opposition here still opposed? Okay. There is still a person here opposed, Madam Chair and Board.
Okay.
So at this point, we would ask the opposition and the applicant to come forward to be sworn in so they can present testimony to the board.
Oh, you're right. Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. I'm Michael Gaskins. I am Mrs. Hartsfield's son-in-law. Ms. Hartsfield's 92 years old and is not able to be here.
Okay.
The intent of her business here is to give her 2 grandchildren each a lot on the property adjoining hers on Trail Road to build just a family estate back there so that 4 generations of family could live side by side back there.
Okay.
The property's now zoned R30, which would, in theory, allow there to be a development of 9 lots back there. But that's not what she wants to have happen. She would like to give this land to her grandchildren to build their homes on. And ultimately, that is the crux of why we're here today. And we sought relief from some of the development so we wouldn't have to put paved streets and gutters and street lights and all that in there for her to do this. And if there's any questions or...
Okay, what we'll do is we'll hear from opposition, and if we have any questions, we'll call you back up, so don't go too far away.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll hear from opposition.
I think our main concern is we're not opposed.
Ma'am, yes, if you can help us and share your name, and then.
Yes. I'm Miriam Sturgis.
I'm Gamaliel Sturgis.
Thank you.
So, and our lot and home is adjacent to their land. So our main concern, we're not opposed to the idea of what they're trying to do. I think we just want to ensure that what's getting approved today on the lot, like the 2 additional homes, is what will actually be done. And if there is any variance or any changes to what's being asked, that we will get the opportunity to be heard again, or there will be a hearing or.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you. John, and I'm sorry, I didn't ask you before, but what is staff's position on the other business item?
Madam Chair, the staff would recommend the Board of Commissioners approve other business number 16, subject to the Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet, subject to the stormwater management comments contained in the other business packet, subject to the water and sewer comments contained in the other business packet, subject to the fire department comments contained in the other business packet, and also subject to the site plan contained in the other business packet, with the district commissioner approving minor modifications.
All right, thank you. Commissioner?
And I would just like to add one other stipulation to that. The letter dated March 15th of 2021, that's marked Exhibit A. We will delete numbers 8, 10, and 11 from the letter, and the applicant has agreed to this. And then also, Ms. Sturgis, just so you know, this will be approved site plan specific, which means the houses as you see today on the site plan will be how they will be built, and if there's any changes, it will have to come back to me for approval. And if you can send me an email, if something happens, I will let you know of those changes. Thank you. That is my motion.
Second.
Is there any further discussion? All right, all those in favor of the motion, can you please raise your hand? Thank you. The motion passes 5-0.
Okay, next item is other business item number 17 of 2021, which is to consider a reduction of public road frontage for JW Industrial Holdings, LLC, for property located on the east side of Canton Road, north of Jamerson Road, in land lot 13 of the 16th District. Is the applicant present?
Yes, the applicant.
Let the record show the applicant is here. Is there anyone here opposed to other business item number 17? Madam Chair and Board, there's no one here in person opposed to other business item number 17. There is one person virtually who's opposed who wishes to speak, and we'll call that person after the applicant's presentation.
I'm sorry, John, I didn't hear that. Is there someone online in opposition?
Yeah, there's one person online who
Okay,
wishes to
thank you.
speak. We'll call that
Appreciate
person when the applicant is finished.
Okay.
Just, John, I'm having a lot of trouble hearing you at times. Can you just make sure that you're closer to the microphone when you're speaking? I don't know if others are having that same issue, but.
Yes, ma'am.
Certainly. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, go ahead, sir.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Jason Womack with JW Industrial Holdings. I'm requesting the variance of a 50-foot public road frontage. This property, along with all the adjacent properties, is served by an easement from Canton Road. There will be no changes to the easement or changes to access to the property from Canton Road. It's simply just to expand the building, to add an addition to the building that's there presently. I'm open for questions, but I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you. Again, we'll go to opposition, but we'll call you back up if we have more questions for you. We'll hear from opposition now.
Our online opposition, our virtual opposition is Carol Brown.
Okay.
Carol, you are unmuted.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, not as well as I'd like, but we can hear you.
Okay, Carol Brown, Canton Road neighbors. We were opposed to the site plan as presented, and I believe that ours, Jim Smith, had submitted fairly extensive comments on March 22nd. our specific concerns were with fire and stormwater. The fire marshal sent extensive comments on the size of the warehouse. The concerns were with engine access, among other things, and whether or not the building should be sprinkled because of its size. And the stormwater comments or concerns came from the site plan itself. And there were two things that were readily visible to average citizens. One of them was the planned removal of the existing detention pond. And also, it appears that runoff was going to be piped directly into a nearby stream. Clearly, that's not acceptable. And I followed up with calling the fire department and had some very good comments from Captain Davis. And I also talked with Mr. Braden, who submitted fairly minimal comments in his staff analysis. But in the conversation, he indicated that he would recommend, I believe, underground detention. But these are the concerns, and these concerns, there's not been a revised site plan submitted that would appear to address the concerns of your professional staff. So I just wanted to get these concerns out into the public record. This is going to become part of the Quikrete complex, and just wanted to make sure that these concerns were addressed in a public way. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. John, what is staff's recommendation?
Madam Chair and Board, the staff would recommend the Board of Commissioners approve the request, subject to the Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet, the stormwater management comments contained in the other business packet, the fire department comments contained in the other business packet, and subject to the site plan contained in the other business packet with the District Commissioner approving minor modifications.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Is Josh Davis or Carl on the line for fire?
Yeah, this is Josh Davis with Cobb Fire.
Hey, Josh, thank you. Can well, this property has to have fire access. So can you address that? I know your comments, I see your comments in the packet, but is there fire access to this building, the existing building, but if they expand, they'll be
Well, if they do
required,
any additions, I'm sorry, go ahead.
they'll be required to have fire access for a fire truck to get back there if there's a fire.
Yeah, so if they do any modifications of the building, such as a building addition or anything, we still have to make sure that not only the new addition, we have access to the new addition, but access to the remainder or the existing portion of the building also still requires fire department access. So that's something we have to verify during site plan review time.
Okay. And then, do you have the proposed site plan in front of you to determine that?
I do not know. I do not know, not at this time.
Okay, but that'll be a requirement. I mean,
Yeah, it would be. So
They
when
won't
we
get
were reviewing the, I'm sorry?
they won't get through plan review if they don't have access to fire trucks, so, that has to be determined. I mean, that is a requirement that they will have to meet, with the proposed additional building.
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
And then, is Dave Braden still on?
This is Carl Carver.
Oh, Carl. Hey, Carl. It's my understanding that underground detention will be provided. However, again, that is determined in plan review. But I do recommend that, and I can call the applicant back up to ask if he's, if that's in the plan.
Actually, they have submitted plans, and I've made numerous comments, and they are proposing an underground detention system.
Okay. Thank you. That's all I have. Anybody else has any?
Thank you, Commissioner.
Okay.
Would you like to make a motion?
Yeah. I'd first like to make some comments before I make the motion. This is at the end of the access road, and it's currently zoned HI, and it's landlocked by industrial properties. So I make a motion to approve OB 17, subject to all staff comments contained in other business packet and site plan submitted in other business packet. Final site plan to come back to District Commissioner for final approval, and strongly recommend underground detention, which will be determined at plan review.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second? Any further discussion? All those in favor of Commissioner Burrow's motion, please raise your hand. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you.
Next item is other business item number 20 of 2021, which is to consider a site plan and stipulation amendment for the Kroger Company regarding rezoning application Z12 of 2017. The property is located on the west side of Powers Ferry Road and on the north side of Terrell Mill Road and land lots 923 and 924 of the 17th District. The applicant is present. Is there anyone here in person opposed to other business case number 20? Madam Chair and Board, there's one person here who's in person opposed to other business case number 20, and there's one person virtually who's in support of other business 20 that does not wish to speak.
Okay.
Would all those opposed in person please come forward, be sworn in?
Thank you. And Garvis, would you like to give time to the person who's online to speak? There's one person online here in support of the application.
He's my engineer,
Okay.
Madam Chair.
All right, very good. Thank you.
Well, first of all, good morning.
Good morning.
For the record, my name is Garvis Sams. I'm with the law firm of Sams, Larkin and Huff, and represent the Kroger Company concerning this application for another business approval. I have with me today, virtually, Mr. Paul Harrell with Robertson Lawyer and Roof. So he's on the line if we need any questions with any degree of specificity in terms of engineering, landscaping, hydrological, or other considerations. His firm from the very beginning, Robertson Lawyer, has been involved with this since its inception. And so we'll be glad to respond to any questions you may have at the appropriate time. This other business application emanates from the board's approval of a mixed-use development rezoning, which was approved by the board on property that's down Commissioner Richardson's district several years ago. For reference purposes, it was Z12, which was filed in 2017. The decision was not until February 20 of 2018. Of course, the minutes, the site plans, everything relative to that underlying zoning, architectural renderings, et cetera, are a part of the other business application, and you should have in your package before you. Not that it's pertinent now, but I have fond memories of the fact that when we presented this in February of 2018, we had 250 people in support of this. So I know this is another business. It's not a new application, but I kind of need to tee it up, or I'd like to tee it up for those members of the board who are new. What you're looking at here, what Cornelius is showing you, this is an aerial photograph of the overall property, which includes the 10-acre tract and then the overall component, which is presently under construction, as you can see, which includes the multifamily apartments to your rear. To the left of that, you see the climate-controlled self-service storage facility, and then the commercial out parcels and restaurants as they're beginning to form. This is fairly recent imagery from 2021, so it's accurate. Could you go to the next one, Bernice? Just another angle looking back at it as you look from a different direction. To your south or to your right in this picture is the 10-acre plus tract that's before you today. This is what had been planned and has still been planned for the Kroger grocery store. And again, a different angle looking back towards Powers Ferry Road, showing the same set of circumstances in terms of development so far. But if you look to your south, you can see two distinct residential subdivisions. To your right, that is Salem Ridge. That's a townhome community, correct? And then if going further to your left, that is an apartment community. So the totality of what Kroger has contiguity to is either the apartments or the substation, which is far to your left, or I guess orientation-wise to your west on this, but actually to your left. This is the revised site plan, and we filed this with the application. And you know, for the uninitiated and someone who hadn't been with the project for 4 or 5 years, like the principals and I and other activist groups have, it might be a little confusing because it's very busy. But what I did after filing this other business application, very quickly on the heels of that, we filed the application March 16. Then we submitted a letter, and it's in your package of information you have right now, which explains the deviations or the changes, revisions to the underlying 10-acre tract here that you have before you today. So that was on March 18th, and that is also in your letter and includes not only the Kroger, but the inline retail. You see it's immediately contiguous and to its left. And then if you look down towards Powers Ferry Road, you can see a commercial shops or out parcel, and of course the fueling station, which will be built, and the other components of that. While this application has been pending, from the very beginning, we contacted folks in Salem Ridge, folks within the apartment development to our north, and also anytime you do anything in Commissioner Richardson's district along the Powers Ferry Road corridor or its ancillary feeders, you should deal with the Powers Ferry Corridor Alliance, who we copied on the original filing with the application and been in touch with them since. And I find that important because with the other business applications, it's a truncated process, so you don't really have a lot of time. If you're going to engage people, you need to do it as quickly as possible, and actually they've been complimentary that we've kept them in the loop, but of course they will stay in the loop until this totally comes to fruition. Commissioner Richardson has decided, and I think adeptly so, that she is obviously familiar with it and has totally assembled all the facts, but she utilized her planning commissioner, Tony Waybright. And in that regard, we met with Tony Waybright, the planning commissioner, our engineers, Kroger representatives, our consultants, landscaping, and then the original developers. You may remember SSP Blue Ridge, Eden Rock, the individuals J.R. Conley and Brandon Ashcody, whom you have seen, whom you have met, and who have met with Commissioner Richardson, not necessarily about this other business application, but other tweaks to the other side that is presently under development. The conversations we had with Planning Commissioner Waybright were incredibly instructive, gave us some good directions, some good suggestions, some good ideas. So what we did, and you've also got this in the package that I handed out, was on April the 15th, we submitted a revised site plan. We submitted also, the next one, this is if you can see it, this is also in your package. You may see it more outlined in a more definitive fashion, but this describes, shows, depicts, portrays, whatever wording you want to utilize, the pedestrian building connectivity, and then the walkability of this site. And as you can see, the positioning of the sidewalks, trails, and other connection points are meaningfully positioned, sometimes strategically positioned. And of course, Kroger's had input into that, but I won't say more importantly, but as importantly, the original developers, Mr. Ashcody and Mr. Conley, have as well. And this was a reach out from the Powers Ferry Corridor Alliance in order for us to define this. And so that April 15th letter submits this, the revised site plan, and it also submitted our expressed assertion that we are meeting all of the ordinance requirements with respect to streetscaping, landscaping, and other issues. In fact, I just received the final landscape plan yesterday. It was too really late to get into the record. If you'd like to see it, I've got it in hard copy form. We can put it up on the overhead projector. But suffice it to say, I think that we've done everything that has advanced the market village concept, increased pedestrian connectivity, walkability, incorporated the Kroger, which was always envisioned for the site. This isn't a new idea, and done everything that we said that we would do from the beginning. And I'm proud to tell you that we are in compliance with those portions of a heavily negotiated set of circumstances back in 2017, 2018. To be a little more specific, with respect to if you can go back one, Cornelius, to the site plan, what we did after our meeting with Tony and our representatives and discussions with the PFCA, Powers Ferry Corridor Alliance, you can see the parking in the front of the inline retail right next to the Kroger. It's approximately 7,470 square foot building, has been adjusted to create a 5-foot walkway in front of that between the pharmacy drive-through and the building wall. And then going back down to the frontage of the property, you can see those proposed shops. Those are 6,530 square feet. It's been adjusted in order to create some additional pedestrian accessibility. There's a dumpster that was located in a different position around the 6,530 square foot shops. That's been relocated and rotated in accordance with PFCA's requests. And in order to just ensure, this is a smaller Kroger footprint, by the way, but in order to ensure that with these new shops, that we don't increase the overall square footage. At one time, the plan set off to the side of the Kroger for future expansion, but we've taken that off. You're seeing Kroger's current prototype. It's funded. It's approved by all their committees. There's been a concern, at least on my part, that brick and mortar for grocery stores may be in decline or may be gone. But with this particular set of circumstances, Kroger has an incredibly transformative technology with respect to how they deal with customers. And I think you're seeing that with a lot of groceries. They're trying to keep one. Madam Chair, I'm over my time. May I have one more minute? May I have 30 seconds?
We will give that to opposition if you have 30 seconds, yeah.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. So they have what's called a Restock Kroger, a scan bag and go technology, and then the click list where you get on your computer and you go and you pick up your groceries, and of course there's delivery components to you as well. So this application before you today, it follows the policy and intent set by this board. It is recommended for approval by your professional staff. We have the support of the Powers Ferry Corridor Alliance. And we do respectfully request that you approve it, Madam Chair. Thank you for the extra time.
43 seconds for opposition.
I wasn't planning on speaking, but I'm Judy Martin, and I live at the end. I live at Salem Ridge at the very end where everything is dumped into my backyard. And there is a drainage ditch in my backyard that's like less than 10 feet from my backyard. And I was here at that February meeting. There were about 200 people here. The houses across the street are condos. They're not apartments. And with the water stands in that ditch. It never goes away. It's a health hazard, and it is causing the eroding of my house. And I just feel like it's unconstitutional because all those new apartments behind me, all that water flows into the ditch that's like 10 feet from my house. And now this Kroger's just going, and all these other stores are just going to add to it. And that's why I oppose it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I don't know where other residences are. There's about 90-something houses there, and there's always been, there's other houses on the same side of the ditch that are further up that have suffered a lot of damage, plumbing damages, flooding, sewage damage because of all this building, and nobody's doing anything about it.
Ma'am, you said you live off, I'm sorry, trying to see on the map.
I can't hear you.
I'm trying to see on the map. You said you live off of Salem Bridge. I'm not seeing it on the map.
I can't hear you.
I'm trying to speak to our staff so I can see your street on the map. She said she lives off of Salem Bridge.
I'm in Salem Ridge. I'm the very first
It's a
house on
community.
the right.
What street is it, ma'am?
Old Virginia Court.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it. Are those all your comments, ma'am?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
John, what's staff's recommendation?
Madam Chair, the staff would recommend that the Board of Commissioners approve the request, subject to the site plan review comments contained in the other business packet, the Cobb DOT comments contained in the other business packet, the Fire Department comments contained in the other business packet, the letter from Mr. Garvis L. Sams Jr. dated April 15th, 2021, and all previous stipulations not in conflict to remain in effect.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Richardson?
Thank you. Yeah, so regarding the flooding issue, I think that's the first I've heard of this particular issue come up, because we have engaged with Salem Ridge residents and also Powers Ferry Corridor Alliance. So I think the issue seems to be separate of this case and may need to be addressed with a more intentional purpose outside of OB 20. So I am, I will definitely follow up on those concerns voiced, but like I said, it's my first time hearing that particular issue come up, respect to the different groups that have been a part of the conversation. And so my motion is to approve this with all of staff comments and recommendations, along with the stipulations that were presented in the April 15th email, and to make sure that all aspects of the original Powers Ferry Corridor or Powers Ferry Road streetscape and landscape are still in application. And I know that that was a part of the letter as well, but just to call it out specifically.
Thank you. Is there a second? Is there a second? I'll second for the purpose of discussion, but I do want to make sure we do flesh out the issue that was shared by opposition today with respect to the flooding. Is Dave Braden or someone from Stormwater here?
Chairman, I just happened to be stopping by Carl's office and heard you guys talking, so yeah, I am here, yeah.
Thank you, Dave. I don't know if you were here. Carl was here during the presentation of OB 20, and there was a flooding issue that was shared by a resident in the adjacent subdivision off of Old Virginia Court, and wanted.
Right, I believe she's the first, if not maybe the first or second townhome on that side. And I believe back when this development came in years and years ago, I met with her as well as site inspections and maybe even DOT, because that entire self-storage facility and the Kroger, all that corner center, they're all drained down through that existing channel. And right there at the corner of that townhome development, it goes under a box culvert underneath Terrell Mill Road, which obviously is DOT's. But there's always been issues with erosion there with the velocities going into that existing culvert. But up until this point, up until the development, there was no stormwater control in that all of that old legacy development there that got torn down. And now there is yeah, if you pull up the GIS, you can see that the master detention facility that's has been in place for several years now, but it controls the runoff from that entire development and discharges it through that existing easement and culvert under Terrell Mill. And like I said, it's certainly better than it was, but I'm sure there's still the same issues that had been there before. And I think DOT has addressed some of the issues with any kind of clogging or erosion there at the head wall under Terrell Mill, but I was not aware that there had been any ongoing issues recently.
Yes, the person who spoke in opposition shared of the issues worsening about 10 feet from her home, where she provides water is not flowing, water is standing, and that's a concern for me, particularly if we continue to add additional development. Would we be exacerbating an issue that seems to have been exacerbated by that development?
Well, we could certainly go out and take as was suggested, go out and take a look at it, and with the site inspectors for community development as well as stormwater, and maybe even DOT, and take a look at what's currently going on.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other comments or questions from commissioners?
I couldn't tell if Garvis had a response to the stormwater question.
Oh,
You had
okay.
stood up. Had there been any review of that?
Yes, ma'am, there is. And of course, the site that's underdeveloped now that Mr. Braden was making reference to does drain through that particular area. The Kroger site that's the subject matter before you today drains in a different location or to a different location down closer to Powers Ferry. And this is the first I've heard of this. And of course, we'll look into it personally, whether staff or you instructed us to or not, to make sure this particular individual ends up being mollified and addressed. But the 10.4 acres is before you today drains into a different direction, and it was anticipated in the overall hydrologic study in terms of impervious surface.
Where would it be draining to? Where would it be?
If I can get the site plan back. Well, I got a board. You got it? Yes, ma'am. Down to, it's underground detention, so it's hard to detect, but down to where those shops are in the south eastern portion of the property for the Kroger site.
Thank you, appreciate that.
Yes, ma'am.
Is there any, Commissioner Burl, I think you had a comment.
Not for Garvis. I mean, I didn't have a question. Commissioner Richardson, I did not support this original zoning because of the density and the number of variances with it, so I can't support this expansion.
You'd be able to put the Kroger in there as a use. Site plan specific. They're always going to.
Hey, Dave, we can hear you, Dave.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. Yep.
Need to mute.
Are there any further comments or questions? Okay. Yeah, and I support Commissioner Richardson and for staff to follow up with the drainage concerns so that that can be addressed. I understand from this particular other business item, the drainage would go into a different part of the property, so it wouldn't exacerbate that
Yes,
issue.
ma'am.
Yeah. Very good. So we have motion, we have second and discussion. All those in favor of this, I'm sorry, what is staff's recommendation? Did I ask you already?
Yes,
You
it
first.
was
Yeah,
approved.
thank you. We had a motion, a second. All of those in favor of this motion, please raise your hand. All of those in opposition? Okay, the motion carries for Commissioner Burl in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Ms. Richardson, thank you.
That, we just have two more brief matters, but I'm going to ask that we take a brief recess for about 5 minutes because I need to get some clarity on. Matter if I want to make it 10 minutes, and then we'll come back at 11:55. Thank you. Thank you and welcome back. We have two more matters to be addressed during this zoning hearing. Both of them are items to be amended. The first one is to amend other business item 27 from 2020. I will provide a little bit of background. Our code provides that we are able to amend a previous action during a hearing, and there has been some challenges with some minutes that were provided during that meeting, which were inconsistent with how the motion was read. And so I'm asking for your help to clarify a motion by the Board of Commissioners for other business item number 27 as listed in the minutes from August 18th of 2020. The stipulation that needs to be amended in the motion to perfect the record is to include in the motion the letter from the Mableton Improvement Coalition dated June 10th, 2020, with stipulations 2 and 3 as they appear in the August 18th, 2020 minutes. And the stipulations from that letter were read during the meeting, but the letter was just never formally added as part of that motion. So with that, I move that we allow amendment of a previous adopted approval of other business item number 27 from the August 18th, 2020 BOC zoning hearing minutes. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Well, Chairwoman, you're just making the motion to revise first, and then you're going to have to...
Yes, then we have to read the actual
Yeah, okay.
amendment. Yes. I need to ask the board's permission for the amendment, and then we will actually make a motion on the amendment. So there's two separate motions. So we had a motion, a second, and we voted. I saw 4 hands raised, and then I heard your question. I don't know if that impedes the motion, but it seemed as if it formally moved forward.
You need to ask for any opposition for it.
Pardon me?
Just to conclude that component of it, you need
Okay,
to ask for any
sure.
opposition to that motion.
Yes, thank you. Is there any opposition to that motion?
I was not in no opposition, but I wasn't going to vote as I was noticing the county attorney was going to speak. And I was
Okay.
waiting for him to speak prior to making my vote.
Okay, so would you like to vote in favor of the motion or opposed to the motion?
I would be in favor of the motion.
Okay, the motion passes 5-0. Thank you. The actual motion is now for the amendment. The first motion, again, was to allow the amendment, and this second motion is to move to follow zoning stipulations for other business item number 27 from the August 18th, 2020 BOC zoning hearing minutes, which is to add a letter from the Mableton Improvement Coalition dated June 10th, 2020, and to add to the list of prohibited uses, liquor stores, adult entertainment, sales of sexually explicit or drug-related paraphernalia, pawn shops and title pawn shops, gold or precious metal dealers, nightclubs, video arcades as a primary use, check cashing, discounted sales, auto truck sales, auto parts, auto services, used tire sales, taxi dispatching services, gun, knife, or weapon sales, shooting ranges, firewood sales, thrift, secondhand stores or flea markets, convenience stores with gasoline sales, gas stations, vehicle parking lots for cars, trucks, or commercial trucks. Also to include staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
I just have one question.
Yes.
Does this impact anything that's already been done?
It-
Or applied for, or business license or anything?
It adds the letter of Mableton Improvement Coalition. The conditions were read during the hearing, but we never read the letter as to be included in the minutes.
Okay.
So when the clerk drafted the minutes, she referred to the letter, but it was never formally moved into it, so it shouldn't. Yes, Commissioner?
I would like to hear from staff on this, please.
Okay.
Madam Chair and Commissioners, there is one person who actually signed up to speak in support of this item.
Okay. Certainly, why don't we go ahead and have them speak? Yeah.
Okay, our virtual speaker is Nate Smith. Nate, you are unmuted. Nate Smith?
Am I unmuted?
We hear you, Nate.
Oh, fantastic. Good afternoon, Madam Chairwoman and Commissioners. My name is Nate Smith, and I live here in Mableton. I am speaking on behalf of the Mableton Coalition. We certainly appreciate you bringing this other business item back up again, and we certainly thank you for allowing us to reconfirm our position. We continue to support the original stipulations and the intent of the mixed letter dated June 10, 2020, as listed in the official minutes of the August 18 meeting. We ask that the motions to amend OB 27-2020 is approved. The stipulation that needs to be amended in the motion to perfect the record is number one, to include in the motion the letter that the Mableton Improvement Coalition dated June 10, 2020, along with stipulations 2 and 3 as they appear in the August 18, 2020 stipulations. During our review process, there was significant degree of confusion on the parcels involved in this OB 27 request. We discovered that during the actual discussions of the zoning committee. We still like to emphasize the need to improve the amendment, which will serve as enforcement of the conditions MIG has asked for. We are looking for a noticeable improvement in the property, which includes landscaping, parking lot improvement, fence removal, no outside storage, dumpster enclosures, and the repainting of the building. In summary, we're asking for stipulations that would make this an attractive commercial property, the same sort of conditions imposed on other commercial properties in South Cobb and throughout the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nate. We had a motion and a second for the amendment. I believe, if I can recall from the hearing, those issues were already addressed during the actual hearing itself. This is just to ensure, however, again, that the letter that Mick provided is officially put in the minutes. But we thank you for calling in and underscoring the need for improvement to this property, which certainly it is needed. And hopefully we'll have support in moving this forward today so we can help to improve that property.
Madam Chair, just one other thing to note. In Mick's original letter, there are time frames that have since passed.
Yeah.
If we can extend those deadline dates for an additional 6 months.
Okay, thank you. I'll defer to our zoning manager or county attorney if it would be reasonable for us to add that letter, because this has been an ongoing issue back and forth with the applicant since the hearing.
Yeah, and the comment that Commissioner Sheffield just voiced is fine with staff. Just add on 6 more months from today's date to get the things done that were date specific.
Okay. So I'd like to amend my motion to add that stipulation for an additional 6 months. Do you second that amendment?
Yes, I do. I second.
To that amendment? Okay, right. Thank you. Any further discussion? Certainly. Is there opposition? There's certainly, I don't see there's anyone here. All right.
Is there anyone here opposed to the item to amend of the business number 27?
No. Thank you.
There's no one here, either in person or virtually. Chairwoman Cupid.
Okay, thank you. So we still have a motion and a second, and any further discussion? All those in favor of the motion as amended to extend the date, please raise your hand. Thank you. The motion passes 5-0. Thank you. With that, we have a second amendment to Z10 of 2021. And I believe that's for you, Commissioner.
District 4, yes. I make a motion to allow amending a previously adopted approval of Z10 of 2021 from the March 16th, 2021 BOC zoning hearing minutes.
All right, is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor in allowing the amendment to be considered, please raise your hand. Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0.
Okay. I make a motion to amend the following zoning stipulations for Z10 of 2021 from the March 16th, 2021 BOC zoning hearing minutes, attached and made a part of these minutes. 1, Planning Commissioner comments and recommendations. Add the list of prohibited uses to include dollar stores and/or discounted merchandise stores. At no time should the dumpsters be located outside of the enclosure. District Commissioner to approve all building, fuel canopy, and sign architecture. 6-foot black metal fence instead of a 6-foot black vinyl-coated chain link fence. Staff comments and recommendations not otherwise in conflict. Letter to agreeable conditions from Garvis L. Sams Jr. dated March 10th, 2021, which includes 2520 Austell Road Safety Plan, which is on file with the Zoning Division.
Is there a second? Second. And I see the applicants here. And
Yes, ma'am.
yes, and are you in support or agreement to this amendment?
Yes, ma'am, we're
Great.
in support of it.
Thank you.
very much.
Appreciate it. All right, is there any further discussion? Is there anyone that's dialed in support or opposition? Okay. Thank you. So we have a motion, second, no further discussion. All those in favor of this amendment, please raise your hand. The motion passes 5-0. That concludes our zoning hearing for today. Thank you.
Thank you.